Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. It is Tuesday, April 22nd. Yes, I'm a little late. I am sorry. But regardless, we are here and we've got a market to open. And the market that we've got to open today, at least in the pre-markets, feels pretty green. I think we were bound to have a little bit of green after the nastiness of the $1.5 trillion we lost yesterday in the stock market. Verizon right here is not green. They had earnings today. A lot of companies had earnings in the pre-market, and we'll talk about those companies. Verizon right here down about 5.2%. But everything else is green. Tesla's up 1%. The S&P is up 1%. Nvidia is up 1.3%. Palantir is up 2.6%. Netflix is up 1%. Bitcoin, look at Bitcoin trying to make its way back to 90,000 after so long. I think it's been almost a month since we've seen 90,000 on Bitcoin. Maybe even a little bit longer than that. But it's moving the way that it's moving. Uber's up a little bit. Gold has passed $3,500 an ounce as of last night. So the gold trade continues to do what it's doing, and it's obviously done very well for people that have been in gold. Amazon's up a little bit. Hims is up a little bit. I think this is a little bit of a sympathy bounce that we're getting right now in the pre-markets. Now, there is some fundamental news in the context of trades and trade deals. We have a little bit of more progress there. Not any official deals announced, but it seems like we're getting closer to a deal, in particular with India. And so we'll talk about that and get into the implications of that and what that means for the broader stock market right here. But it's nice to see some green. It's nice to see some green. The 10-year also dropped a bit as well. That's correct. Bond yields slightly coming down in the pre-markets. They're not down dramatically, but they're down enough where it is a good thing to see some of these bond yields take a little bit of a break from screaming as high as they were yesterday. But in general, overall equity markets are relatively green right now, which is a nice thing to see. And now we just need to make sure we can hold that up for the rest of the day. Today is also Tesla earnings day, which is a big, big day because obviously we've got Tesla earnings. And whenever you have Tesla earnings, there is always a lot of momentum and excitement in the air to see what happens for Tesla. So I hope everyone's excited for that. I will be live probably starting at 3:30. So we'll be live 15 minutes earlier than when we usually go live, 3:45 versus 3:30. And we'll try to see if Tesla can put up the good numbers. We'll talk more about Tesla numbers and expectations in the context of Tesla, but I don't know at this point, dude. It's a nice little macro setup we got going into the earnings in terms of just like markets aren't like horribly red. Now, obviously, we're in the pre-markets. Anything can change until we get into the pre-market, until we get into the market open. But it's going to be one of those days where either Tesla has the numbers and the qualitative metrics to put something up, or Tesla gives us the crappy numbers that we all know we're probably going to get, and the stock does what we kind of all think it's going to do. So today we're going to see what happens to Tessie, and then we got Google on Thursday. Thank everybody for being here. June, Benny, what's up? Derek, Rodrigo, Midwest, Theo, Stefan, For Real, I'm Beneficial, Krishna, Jason, Sebastian, Thiago, good morning, good morning. Thank you all for being here today. Nolan, what's up? Charles, good morning. Sway, Rob, Magusto, Ian, Thomas, I want some of the nice drugs you're on, Amit. Nice macro setup is crazy. I guess not nice macro setup, more so in the context of it's not bleeding red like it was yesterday, which is at least kind of good news for Tesla going into earnings. But then again, this is a pre-market. And we've had a couple pre-market fake outs over the past couple of weeks as well. Especially right before April 2nd, we would be like pretty green in the pre-markets, and then as soon as the market opens, it would stay green for 2 minutes and then it would tank. We haven't had that happen for a couple of days now. It's just red in the pre-markets, red during the day. Maybe today is going to be one of those days. Again, I don't really know why the markets, I didn't expect it to be green in the pre-markets outside, and it kind of went green in the futures last night. It turned at around 9 p.m. We started going green. Futures were actually red. Some people are speculating there's a Vietnam deal coming up, because if you looked at Nike and Levi's yesterday, they were the only two stocks that were green. And we make Levi jeans in Vietnam and Nike shoes in Vietnam. So a lot of people are thinking, hey, someone always knows. And the reason those stocks are going green is because there's going to be some deal announced with Vietnam soon. Like literally everything was red yesterday except Netflix. Netflix was up like 1%. And then Nike and Vietnam were green. Or not Nike, but Nike and Levi's were green. So who knows? Maybe there's some types of deals coming that could be exciting, but it could also just be a pre-market fake out right now. Hugh, what's up? Dexter, are we at 2027 yet? We are not at 2027 yet. We got a little bit of more time to go for that. Abi, good morning. Hello from Dubai. Abi, thank you for being here. Ty, Soros, Sydney, good morning. Good morning. Jeff, Jan, Theo, again, thank you everybody for being here today. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to get into, and it's going to be an exciting day as we have Tesla earnings. Justin, what's up? Pizza Picasso. That's an incredible name. Pizza Picasso. That's a great name. Some of you guys have some of the most creative names on YouTube, dude. Like Broccoli Bob. I mean, come on, bro. Broccoli Bob. That's amazing. Paul, good morning from Ireland. Kenneth, Matthew, good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. All right, let's get started. We have a update real quick. I was going to get into the India news, but we got a update from China that came across the wire just now. Here we go. China Foreign Minister. China and EU should shoulder international responsibilities, jointly defend multilateral trading system, and jointly build an open world economy. This is coming from the Chinese Foreign Ministry. Okay, so the Chinese Foreign Ministry just put out a statement saying China and the EU should shoulder the international responsibilities of the world. They then go on to say China is willing to further strengthen high-level exchanges with the EU, consolidate foundation of mutual trust, and properly manage differences. That is coming from the Chinese Foreign Ministry. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if that's going to work. I think that China is trying to obviously buddy up with our allies. They've been doing this with Canada over the past couple of weeks. Now it looks like they are trying to make inroads into the EU. I think the EU, as much as they're annoyed with Trump, they're not going to go to China. And you guys can tell that a lot of you guys live in Europe. Like, do you actually think the EU would be willing to cooperate with China over the US? Even though they probably are tired of Trump, and they've probably never liked Trump, even from Trump 1.0. I don't think they go back to China. I mean, like, do you really think they say, all right, instead of working with the United States, which provides a lot of defense funding and is a big part of NATO, we're going to go to China? I don't think that's going to be the case. So this, to me, is not really anything right here. This is just the foreign minister trying to get some headlines out there in terms of their willingness to work with some of our allies. But I still think it's a long shot for them to actually meaningfully work with the EU. Now, if that does happen, that means the United States has successfully isolated everyone that we need in our corner, which, again, I just think, like, yes, we're doing that right now, but I don't know if that's going to necessarily lead to this massive isolationist ecosystem where we have zero allies. Because at the end of the day, if we get some deals done, I think, the allies and us will be happy. Question is, when are we going to get those deals done? How are those deals going to happen? And then, what implications is it going to have on the global economic world order, in particular with trade? And so I wouldn't imagine that China takes away the EU from us. Look at Bitcoin. Wow, 89,142. My goodness. Bitcoin continuing to get some momentum right here. 89.15. This thing was at 84 on Friday. It looks like it wants 90. And if we see a 90K Bitcoin, while the rest of the market is lagging behind it, again, that decoupling theory, I don't think it's been proven yet, but if it takes a few more months of this happening, aka the NASDAQ goes this way and Bitcoin goes that way, then I think there might be an argument for the decoupling. MicroStrategy did buy another 6,000 Bitcoin yesterday. The ETFs, by the way, which have been horrible for Bitcoin inflows, yesterday was actually not a bad day. $381 million came into the Bitcoin ETF inflows, which is quite surprising because yesterday was a red day. And so people were buying IBIT and Kathy's Bitcoin fund and Fidelity's Bitcoin fund over tech stocks, which means they were diversifying into risk, just not the type of risk that you would think, which would be tech. It's Bitcoin. That's where they're diversifying into, which is very interesting to me because I did not expect them to be going that route. But we are seeing to get a little bit more money here. Obviously, I think some of the foreign institutions are getting in. Michael Saylor is getting in. And then you've got the ETFs that are now starting to see some positive inflows after a couple of weeks of negative triple-digit days. Yesterday, almost 400 million when the S&P is down 2% is pretty incredible. As a result, Robinhood should be up right now. Robinhood, there you go, up 2.4% currently right now. Coinbase should be getting a little bit of momentum. Coinbase 1.73%. And then MSTR, which the shorts have not worked out on this thing, 325. That's up 2.5% after being up about 0.5% yesterday. Ethereum is not following, dude. Ethereum, I'm not big in like all the different crypto inner circles, but the one meme that I know that exists within the crypto community is that Ethereum sucks. And you've got people that are either super bullish because of NFTs and smart contracts and yada, yada. And you got other people that are just like, this is the most pointless asset ever. And like, it's always been Bitcoin. If anything, Solana is more, I would say, community oriented than Ethereum, because you've actually seen a lot of coins take off on the Solana blockchain, and the Solana blockchain has a lot of developers and ecosystem attached to it. So people call that kind of the true version of decentralized finance, whereas Bitcoin is more so the store of value, and then Ethereum is just this thing that was popular in 2021 for buying NFTs, and now no one cares about it. So yeah, Bitcoin has vastly outperformed Ethereum, and Ethereum kind of just sits on the sidelines right here waiting for a bid. So that's what we got in the crypto markets. China headline, again, foreign minister wants to work with the EU. I don't think that's that much of a headline. I don't think the EU is going to work with them, but I guess we'll see how this ends up playing out. We got another quote from the Chinese foreign minister. They also said China and the UK have a responsibility to uphold international order in the face of rampant unilateral bullying. China and the UK have a responsibility to uphold international order in the face of rampant unilateral bullying. Yeah, I don't think they're going to get the UK on their side, dude. I don't think they're going to get the UK on their side, and I don't think they're going to get the EU on their side. As much as the UK and the EU might hate America right now, I don't think they go to China. I don't think they go to China. And if they do, I think it's just like, I think something is happening at that point if they go to China. But I think relations are good enough, hopefully, for them to not go to the CCP. All right, let's talk about India. Right now, let's talk about India. So we do have some updates in the context of India. It looks like JD Vance, who did go to India yesterday, and he met with Prime Minister Narendra Modi yesterday, was a productive meeting. And I don't think it was just a meeting for show. It looks like they're going to actually get some value from that meeting based on some of the updates we're seeing right now. India is one of our biggest allies, and unfortunately, they've been buying a ton of oil from the Russians, and you kind of can't blame India because they have, 1.5 billion people. They kind of need energy, and Russia has a lot of cheap oil, given that the rest of the world is sanctioning Russia. So India's got to do whatever they got to do. But they have been a very strong ally with the United States for a long time. Relationships with the Trump administration were good in Trump 1.0, and it seems like relationships are getting better now with JD Vance. So what did Mr. JD Vance say? Well, he said a couple things. India and America have finalized terms of reference for trade deal negotiations. So not a deal, but essentially the framework for what the deal would look like. India and the U.S. will co-produce many different defense equipments. We want India to buy more of our military equipment. This is all from JD Vance today. And he says he believes there's much to gain from our different energy ties. Interestingly, this statement focused on defense. So it seems like he wants them to buy more military equipment. Again, India and the United States have finalized terms of reference for a trade deal. To me, that seems more like the framework for what a trade deal will look like, not a trade deal in and of itself, but a trade deal has the potential to be formed. I think our first trade deals are either going to be with Japan, South Korea, Mexico, Canada, or India. Like, those are some of our biggest allies. The EU is going to take a lot of time to negotiate, so I don't expect that anytime soon. But out of those 5 countries, if we can't get one of those deals like soon, then we got an issue. David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, he was live today, and he basically said it would be really nice to see a trade deal or two. He was kind of like being sarcastic, and he was like, everyone's talking about trade deals. Like, it'd be nice to see one of them. And we haven't obviously seen a trade deal yet, even though the administration's been talking about it a lot. I think it would be really nice before the end of April to get one. I'm not optimistic we'll get one, given, trade deals are pretty hard to negotiate. So I don't think we can easily plan on getting one. But it would be nice to see if that happens. Now, what would the United States want from India? It looks like JD Vance is saying we want India to buy more of our military equipment, which is fine. Like, that would obviously be a good thing. But I think there's some other things that are more important than our military equipment, and that is the population of India is 1.5 billion people, with about 700 million of them entering into the middle class. That doesn't mean they have tons and tons of disposable income, but that does mean they are starting to have more income than not. And so this is another thing that it looks like JD Vance is trying to get from India right here. Access to those markets. The U.S. is pressing India to give Amazon and Walmart full access to its $125 billion e-commerce market as a part of ongoing trade talks. With a 26% tariff on Indian exports hanging in the balance, Washington is calling current restrictions on foreign retailers non-tariff barriers. This was reported by the FT this morning. Right now, Amazon and Walmart can only operate as marketplaces, while local players like Reliance, which is one of India's largest companies in the context of e-commerce, can produce, own, and sell products directly. Talks are ongoing with a 90-day pause on new tariffs set to expire soon. This is actually the type of stuff that I think we need to negotiate. Because if we can get India to give Amazon and Walmart opportunities to access the growing $100 billion, which will eventually turn into a multi-$100 billion e-commerce market. I was just in India in October, and e-commerce is insane. I mean, the amount of people that order things online is just, it's crazy, right? Like, you got billions of people that now are starting to have money. They want to buy things. Amazon and Walmart should have access to that. Now, why does India not want to give them access to that? Because India wants to make sure their own companies have the ability to sell to their own consumers. However, if you want to not pay as many tariffs, if you want to be able to develop better trade relationships with the United States, it would be nice to have access to this. This is one of the ideas that I thought the U.S. could negotiate with China. It's a long shot, but imagine if, China opened up the ability for Google to operate there. That's like never going to happen. But if Trump could pull that off, that would be the deal of the century, because Google has access to 1 billion people that would potentially be able to use its services. That's not going to happen. But the point is, that would be the type of a concession that I think Wall Street would be like, okay, we lost $11 trillion in the stock market, but this was the reason why. And like, we understand why we went through all that pain. Unfortunately, if we don't get those types of deals, then, that type of pain doesn't seem like it's going to meaningfully be worth it. But that would be one of the things that would be exciting to see. So Amazon and Walmart, yes, they operate in India, but they don't operate in the exact way. Again, they're a marketplace. They don't directly source, create, and then sell the materials there. Also, Walmart bought a Flipkart, or I think they bought an equity stake in Flipkart, which is another one of the India e-commerce big retailers. Again, if Walmart can go direct to Indian populations along with Amazon, that would be beneficial. So I'm curious what the trade deal looks like whenever we get it, if we get it anytime soon. But it seems like more defense spending, more opening up of their economy to our e-commerce stores. And then potentially we would take off tariffs and we would give them something else. Not sure exactly what India wants from our side, but that would be how the framework of this trade deal potentially looks like. So that's what we got in terms of the updates of India and America currently right now. Amid is Pakistani cosplaying as Indian. Dude, I've never even fully understood the beef between Pakistan and India. Like, I know there's beef, but it's not my beef. I've never embraced the beef. I've never cared about the beef. But apparently there's like, thousands of years of beef. And I'm just like, I don't know what's the big issue. Granted, I'm ignorant towards it. I've never studied it that deeply, but I've also never like cared that much about it. So I guess that's some history I have to read up. But a lot of times Pakistanis and Indians look the same to me. So it's just different religion, but outside of that, not that crazy. 89.2 on Bitcoin. Bitcoin really getting some momentum right here, up $1,000 in the pre-market, 1.2% right now, 89.2. Hit 89.3 for a second. All the crypto stocks getting some momentum. Even Nvidia right here, actually showing some signs of life, 1.5%. Again, Nvidia went down yesterday based on the China news of Huawei being able to develop potentially the H100. So a lot of that revenue leaving Nvidia and now going to China. Chinese companies like a Huawei. I think American companies have to just deal with the fact that Nvidia is probably not going to get that China revenue anytime soon. But we are seeing a little bit of a rebound right now in the pre-markets. Okay, cool. So that's what we got with India and America. My dad is so petty, he won't wear the clothes made in Pakistan. Dude, that's crazy. I'm telling you, people like Indians and Pakistanis, they don't like each other. Like the older ones, right? The ones that like acknowledge all the historical, but like I think the younger generation doesn't care that much. But yeah, people still have beef from a long time ago. Okay, so India and America. So that was the biggest trade deal update I saw in the morning, which was bullish. Maybe that's why the markets are up a little bit. I can't see any other reason outside of like a sympathy bounce from yesterday. But that was kind of one of the big deals that came out this morning. You have David Solomon right here. Let's take a listen to him. Again, Goldman Sachs CEO. He had some quotes this morning and what's going on with the tariffs. So let's see what he has to say, and then we'll get into a couple of other big headlines we got in the context of NVIDIA as well.
You're seeing all these weird things happening with equities dropping, bond yields going up, the dollar dropping pretty steadily, gold prices at all-time highs. And it's making people wonder what this all means. Is this a crisis of confidence in our markets right now? What do you read as to what we're seeing?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and it's good to be with you.
Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, it's good to be with you in Houston. We're in a very different macro environment than we were in just a few months ago. I think the last time I was on the show and the last time I spoke to you guys was in Davos.
Yeah.
And certainly we could all talk about kind of the aura of how people felt in Davos, but it was very, very different. You were coming into the inauguration. There was a lot of optimism around a lower regulatory environment and changes. And so now we're a few months into the administration, and instead of policy becoming more certain, we actually have a greater sense of uncertainty broadly, and it's having a big impact on asset prices and markets. And so the trade policy and the discussions about trade policy certainly have changed the level of uncertainty in markets. Markets are looking to reprice the value of things based on the uncertainty they have around what these policies will ultimately look like and how they will ultimately be implemented. And that is therefore causing shifts in fund flows on a very significant basis. And I think one of the things that's different about what we're seeing right now is normally when asset prices, when equities reprice, it's not surprising when you go into a more uncertain environment that equities reprice. But generally when they do, people buy US Treasuries. But here we're seeing different behavior because at the margin, people that have been very, very inclined towards US dollar assets are slightly shifting their preferences. And I'd say it's still at the margin, but as people are selling equities, that puts downward pressure on the dollar, given these are all US equities. You've got investors around the world buying US equities. And as they de-risk to some degree, that's putting pressure on the dollar. And that obviously has an impact on treasuries. So the level of uncertainty is high. I think it's good that there's been a delay, let's say, in the implementation of these reciprocal tariffs, but we still don't know what these deals are going to look like, where it's going to land, and what the ultimate impact on business will be. And so what's happening is business is pulling back. People are pulling back because they want to wait and see. They want a higher level of certainty before they make decisions and they move forward.
So you think this delay is good? You think it's good because it gives it a chance for them to undo some of those actions and activities?
I would say the delay is good because this was all happening very, very quickly. And, I think these are complicated issues and we need more time to see what the ultimate result will be. I think one of the things about the delay is the delay didn't decrease the level of uncertainty. In fact, in some ways, the delay increased the level of uncertainty. And so until businesses and individuals all over the world, not just here in the United States, can understand our trade policy, how it's going to be implemented, and that allows people to step back and make decisions about their capital spending, their investment, their planning. We can understand relationships in global markets with respect to the dollar. Until we settle down and get to a place that can understand that, we're going to see a higher level of volatility and continued pressure on U.S. asset prices.
So you say this is around the margins, just in terms of investors having less faith in the United States and other places. Do you think that this, because some people get hyperbolic about this and think that this is the end of the American exceptionalism when it comes to the markets. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I've been talking to clients all over the world, and I happened to be on a trip, overseas last week. I was in the Middle East a little bit last week, and the reason I say at the margin is kind of U.S. preeminence from an investment perspective and the long-term flow of international investors into U.S. assets because of the relative performance of the U.S. is something that's happened over a very long period of time. And you can't reverse it 100% in 5 minutes. And so what we're seeing is certain changes in behavior at the margin. But when you step back and you ask, what are the opportunities? Where can you go? Think about it as a balance in a portfolio. If you've got more U.S. dollar exposure, there are two ways that your portfolio rebalances and you have less U.S. dollar exposure. Right. One of them is you can sell the assets. The other is the relationship between, let's say, your European investor, the relationship between the dollar and the euro changes. So I don't think that we're taking 80 years of a direction of travel and just reversing it instantaneously. But I do think these are serious things that you have to watch very, very carefully. And if we don't get to a policy place of certainty where people can trust and they can rely, it will have longer term implications.
So essentially, David Solomon, CEO of Goldman Sachs, just saying, hey, we got to get some deals done. We got to get levels of certainty that relaxes the VIX. The VIX is down, I believe, about 7% right now in the pre-markets, which is nice. It's down 5%. It was up 14% yesterday. So we got a little bit of cooling of the volatility. 10 years down, 30 years down. The dollar's actually up today, which is good. We were at 3-year lows yesterday. David Solomon's not full out rebuking the concept of the tariffs. You can see that interview. He's not like straight up saying tariffs are the stupidest idea. He's more so just saying we need more certainty. And if we get more certainty, there will be a much better chance for us to continue the foreign exposure that we've had to U.S. assets that, quite frankly, we've been blessed to have over the past couple of years. in a meaningful way. I mean, foreign assets, I believe as of January, were about 16 trillion out of the 32 trillion value of the stock. So basically half, 45 to 50% of half of the stock market was foreign investors. And that is what has led to the NVIDIAs, the Palantirs, the Robinhoods, the Teslas getting the momentum they got from 2023. You just had a lot more money coming from across the world into U.S. assets. If that goes down based on people not trusting our debt or our currency, aka the dollar, et cetera, that's not a good thing. Now, do I think that's realistically going to happen? No, because at the end of the day, the U.S. is the U.S. Robinhood right here, $40.95, up about 3% in the pre-markets. But the more and more we have uncertainty, the more it leads to those assets going to Europe or just leaving the United States in and of itself. Bitcoin right here, trying to get to 90K, 89.7, really getting some momentum right here. And it looks like it wants 90, 89.6. Again, no major headlines on Bitcoin that I can see. Nothing like a strategic reserve or something coming out of Italy or anything like that. It's just going up. Markets are green in the pre-market. Bitcoin has been green for the past couple of days, and looks like Bitcoin's riding the trend of more risk on momentum. That means Fartcoin should explode today, literally. Yeah, of course. Why not? Fartcoin's up 23%. Why not? It is back over $1, folks. It is back over $1. So it is now a $1 billion market cap. I mean, we make fun of this thing, but it's been working. Like, we make fun of this thing, but literally, you got a chance to buy this thing at 20 cents a month ago. You would be up 5x. So it's pretty incredible. But the reason Fartcoin's pumping is also because if Bitcoin pumps, the entire crypto ecosystem pumps, except Ethereum. Ethereum never pumps for some reason. And that's good for trading volumes. That's good for Coinbase. That's good for Robinhood. Obviously good for MicroStrategy. And good for anyone who's speculating on the meme coins. I personally don't like it. I think that level of speculation means that we are still frothy. But at this point, it doesn't matter what I think. It's just how the assets have reacted over the past couple of weeks. Okay, we got another update on tariffs as well in the context of solar equipment. So we imposed a 3,500% tariff on Cambodia, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand for solar equipment. The move follows a year-long probe that found companies were selling below cost with help from government subsidies. The U.S. imported nearly $13 billion in solar gear from these four countries last year, roughly 77% of all panel imports, so basically solar panels, not the microinverters, which is what Enphase makes. That's why Enphase, I believe, is not affected by this, but the actual panels themselves. While this gives a lift to domestic players like First Solar, it also puts more pressure on U.S. renewable developers already dealing with policy swings and rising costs. I don't know how we got to 3,521%. But that is the number that the Commerce Department came up with, and that is the tariff we've dropped in the context of solar panels. So, yeah. I thought it would affect Enphase, but I guess not. I mean, Enphase sells the microinverter, so it's not really that affected by it. We also get a lot of solar panels from China, but given that we have 145% tariff on them, that one is those shipments potentially might start going down, and we might start diversifying. But now we're tariffing the other countries that we were getting it from because of the fact that governments were subsidizing those products. Enphase right here up about 1.86% currently right now in the pre-markets. Yes, Enphase is reporting today as well. That's correct. Speaking of companies reporting, let's get into earnings. So we had a lot of different earnings today to look at. A lot of companies, some of them had good earnings, but their stock prices did not reflect it. Others just had really good earnings and their stock prices are reflecting it. By the way, in terms of Steve, I think he's going to be on the open today. Probably around that 10:30 time. Can't guarantee it, but I do think he's going to be on. He's taking a day off from work today, so he should be able to come on. He might be on with us on Tesla earnings as well, so he might be on the market open, market close. For those that missed the market close yesterday, Steve's update is that he's not happy with what's going on in the context of Trump. So he said, and I quote, "Not going to sugarcoat it. Trump is doing a horrible job and is putting tweets out to damage control just for the hell of it. He is effing us and he is losing all credibility." So for those that wanted a lovely rose-colored glasses view of the market from Steve, even he is getting fed up to the. I was surprised when he texted me that yesterday. And the thing that did it for him is that tweet, but from Trump saying he's J-Pow's a loser, yada, yada. And Steve doesn't like the Fed. Steve is not a fan of J-Pow. If you've listened to Steve at all for the past 2 years, he is not a fan of Jerome Powell, and he doesn't like the Fed, and he thinks they should be cutting aggressively. But he also doesn't think the president can just unilaterally remove someone from power, because then, that kind of turns into a dictatorship. So he is not happy with what's going on right here. He still remains bullish. It's not like he's selling anything, but he's definitely not a fan of how the current administration is playing with fire here, with potentially getting rid of J-Powell. So yeah, that is his take. And I think he should be on about an hour and give us a little bit more context on that. Okay, earnings. So what do we have in earnings? Well, we got Lockheed Martin, we got Verizon, we have a bunch of these consumer companies. So let's take a look at them. Verizon right here, they beat on the top and the bottom line. Not bad. 3% EPS, 119 versus 115, 1% on revenue, 33.5 versus 33.2. However, guidance wasn't necessarily the best, and that is why Verizon is currently down about 5.1% of the pre-markets. Verizon is one of those names, juicy dividend. It was a really attractive buy when it was $29 back in mid-2023. You could have wrote it up, but since then, it's kind of been stuck between 40 to 43, and right now it's back down to $40.70 as it's down in the pre-market. Then you have 3M. So 3M right here, they beat EPS by 6%, 177 versus 188, or 188 versus 177, and then 5.78 billion versus 5.76. So a modest beat on revenue and a decent beat on EPS. 3M stock right now in the pre-market is up 6.83%. Wow, this one doesn't move 6% that easily. So even with EPS down 21% year over year because they beat expectations, that stock getting some love and momentum. Then you've got GE Aerospace. This one beat by 17%. EPS is up 82% year over year, 149 versus 127. Revenues 9.0 versus 9.05 billion, slightly down. So revenue a small miss, but the overall earnings, in particular with EPS, pretty phenomenal. And their stock is up 5% in the pre-markets. Again, not bad. It's not like companies are having horrible earnings. Then you had Lockheed Martin. Do we have those numbers? Let me actually get those numbers. I have those right here. But Lockheed Martin also is up 4% right now in the pre-markets. Why? Because Lockheed Martin reported a $173 billion backlog and beat on the top and bottom line, which is starting to show now that we've got about 100 companies that were reported so far. I think about 75 companies. That earnings season for Q1, I know we got tech coming up, big tech, but so far it's not been too bad.
Lockheed Martin just out with quarterly results. Let's get to Morgan Brennan with the numbers. Good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Well, here's the trend so far for aerospace and defense earnings. A first quarter beat, reaffirmed full year guidance, but with a big asterisk. So Lockheed Martin, earnings of $7.28 per share. This was much better than the $6.34 that was expected by analysts. Revenue up 4%. This was nearly $18 billion. Also a beat. Lockheed emphasizing its $173 billion backlog. That represents over 2 years of future sales. This after a high-profile loss to Boeing for the F-47 program to build the Air Force's 6th-gen fighter jet. But the top weapons maker sticking with guidance. However, that does not include that competition outcome or executive orders or impact from tariffs. There's a similar story at RTX, which grew sales across commercial and defense last quarter. It too reiterated guidance, but will lay out scenarios on its conference call tied to trade. Also, GE Aerospace, you see those shares up. Northrop Grumman is the outlier here. I got to mention this one because you had an EPS miss, reaffirmed full year sales guidance, but it did trim full year profit. That stock is down big pre-market. NOC is down about 9% right now. Here's what to watch. Defense spending outlooks. President Trump floated $1 trillion defense budget, but also internationally, European contractors can't make what American ones can, at least not yet. How new purchases will be made, executive orders and acquisition reform could be good for taxpayers, but industry too. And the Golden Dome homeland missile defense opportunity. This could be massive for the entire sector. Here's the takeaway. Even the companies with largely U.S.-based supply chains making products in high demand at times of heightened geopolitical tensions like now, they're not immune to this so-called economic uncertainty, but they are somewhat buffered, which is why they've outperformed the market so far this month with names like Lockheed Martin actually up since the beginning of April, Joe.
That Golden Dome program, by the way, should be super bullish for Palantir. Now, we don't have confirmation that Palantir, SpaceX, and Anduril are bidding for it. Elon did deny that SpaceX was in the bidding. He did say if the DoD asks SpaceX to put in a bid, he would be doing it. But he said that the Financial Times article around Palantir, SpaceX, and Anduril going for it together is incorrect. Now, maybe Palantir and Anduril are still going for it, but maybe SpaceX is not involved. So we don't have the updates on that. However, Golden Dome would be a big update and a big mission for the United States DoD to actually pursue. You can see Raytheon right here, not really acting positive on Lockheed's earnings, down about 7.7%, whereas LMT is up about 2%. So the market's kind of thinking there's going to be some trade-offs with defense spending, and some of those trade-offs might come to other companies that are not projected to do as well as what Lockheed is doing. They're keeping their guidance flat, even though they have a backlog for the next 2 years, which is good, but there might not be dramatic growth, which is, why the stock is not up that much and why some of these other companies are expected to potentially not grow, like a Raytheon, like a Northrop Grumman, and that's why they're currently down right here in the pre-markets. Anduril's eating Lockheed's lunch. Yeah, I mean, if there is a Golden Dome program similar to Israel's Iron Dome, then I would imagine Anduril would be in the running for that. And I'm not saying the legacy defense contractors aren't going to have any of that contract, but I think that there would be a good shot that the new ones just are faster and more efficient and might be able to win those contracts over the legacy ones. Amit, any comment about data center critical infrastructure? Okay, so I'm happy you brought that up. There was a report yesterday going around that we talked about on the market close of Amazon potentially shutting down certain data center leases because Wells Fargo put out a note saying, hey, we've had some calls with clients, and it looks like Amazon is pulling back on the data center leasing. This is why VRT, VST, NVIDIA, I mean, that contributed to NVIDIA's decline yesterday, but all those stocks took a dip once that news came out. One of the Amazon executives, who is the VP of Global Data Centers, he came out and on LinkedIn, he wrote, this is routine capacity management, and there haven't been any recent fundamental changes in our expansion plans. Fortunately for our customers, they're able to focus on their business and leave these details to us. So a lot of people that were expecting AWS or Amazon to come out and saying, hey, we're pulling back from our data center spend, and that would obviously be affecting NVIDIA. Kevin Miller comes out yesterday and says, no, this is just kind of routine capacity management. We don't have any recent fundamental changes to our expansion plans. If that is true, and Amazon confirms that, and then Google confirms that, and then Meta confirms that, and then Microsoft, which we already know is pulling back a little bit, but hopefully the blow is not that aggressive when they report earnings, then, I mean, the whole data center CapEx AI spend narrative that people are throwing out the window because NVIDIA is losing China revenue. Yeah, maybe NVIDIA is losing China, but it might not be losing the hyperscalers because AI is still a thing. Even though AI doesn't feel like a thing anymore because of all this volatility and people don't want to, focus on like the transformational reform that is AI, but like it still is out there. NVIDIA is still selling chips. So I think if all the hyperscalers continue to give the type of guidance that they're giving, then hopefully that would be very bullish for NVIDIA. VRT right here is up about 2.89%. And then VST, those are the data center plays. They're up about 1.4% right now in the pre-market. You guys are saying NVIDIA signed another deal with VRT. If that's the case, then that's probably why VRT is getting a little bit of momentum right here. So it looks like data centers, are not going anywhere. And even though there are rumors of companies pulling back, those rumors so far aren't substantiated. Yeah, I see it right here. Vertiv collaborates with NVIDIA and iGenius to deploy Coliseum and NVIDIA Grace Blackwell superchips. All right, so you got that update right there for more data centers, which is good for NVIDIA. A couple more things before we get into the market open. We got about 3 minutes. Thank you, everybody, for being here. So this is what Tom Lee tweeted yesterday. You can tell that he's getting pretty annoyed by what's going on. He said the U.S. 2024 trade deficit for goods was $1.2 trillion. That means we imported $1 trillion less than what we exported $1 trillion less than what we imported. That's what created the trade deficit. He then writes the loss in equity market cap today equals one trade deficit. So without like literally explicitly throwing the shade, he's kind of indirectly saying, hey, this whole trade deficits thing that like we're fighting all these tariffs for, we lost the trade deficit in one day from market capitalization in the stock market. Obviously, you can tell Tom Lee is getting annoyed by all this and, he wants this to be over, but we just don't know exactly when there's going to be any end in sight. And to substantiate how annoyed he is by this, take a look at this stat by Ryan Dietrich. The S&P 500 is down 14% since President Trump took office on January 20th. Here is how the past 32 first 100 days did of a new term back to 1900. As of now, this would be the worst first 100 days out of every single president since 1900. Joe Biden's last term, 2021, we were up about 10.1%. Trump's 1.0 term, we were up about 5.3% in the first 100 days. Currently, right now, we are down 14% in Trump 2.0. The closest we got to that was William Howard Taft in 1909 when the S&P 500 was down 13.8%. And then Franklin Roosevelt, wow, we were up 78.3%. Holy crap. So that was in 1933. But obviously, it's been a rough first 100 days, and a lot of people are still trying to figure out why it happened. No one exactly knows, but I think eventually when we get these trade deals, hopefully when we do and things start turning around, we'll have a better understanding of if all this pain was worth it. All right, 30 seconds until the market opens. You got Robinhood getting some love right here, up about 3% in the pre-markets. Tesla right here, 1.4%. Wow, the S&P 500 getting back a lot of what it lost yesterday, almost 60% of what it lost yesterday. It's getting back in the pre-markets. Let's see if this green can continue, if we can keep up the pump. Bitcoin as well, trying to get back to 90K. And if this will be a green day as we get into Tesla earnings. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Tuesday, April 22nd, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. NVIDIA opens up 1.5% on the day. That is green. It lost about 5% yesterday. It is up about 1.5% on the day. Enphase is up 1%. MicroStrategy is up 3.1%. Robinhood, $41. That's up about 2.89%. Coinbase is up 2.1%. Meta was at $479 yesterday, back to $491, up 1.43%. Meta has earnings in about 2 weeks. Google, which has earnings on Thursday, that's at $148. That is green. Tessie, $230. 1.4%. Tesla, we'll talk a lot more about Tesla in a bit. They've got earnings coming up after the bell. I'll be live at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. It's up about 1.04%. Arc Innovation's up 1.28. Netflix, well above 1,000. It deserves it on a green day. Netflix was probably going to pump. Yesterday was not green, but those earnings more than justified Netflix being up 3 to 4%. Netflix right here up about 2.58%. Bitcoin 89.6. Uber right here 73.98. That's up about 1.4%. Microsoft's up about 1%. Apple's up 1.7%. Amazon, which got to 165 yesterday, now back at 169. That's up 1.58% currently right now. Where is Palantir? Palantir 92. 92.88. That's up about 2.6%. Palantir getting a little bit of love. CoreWeave is at 36.78. This one fell from 47 last week. However, it did get upgraded today by Goldman Sachs to, I think, that 45 range. I believe that's the price target they issued on CoreWeave. So although it's down from last week, it's up about 4% currently right now. Where is Grab? Grab earnings, by the way. Grab's up 2%. We are having earnings April 29th. April 29th. So Grab April 29th. SoFi also April 29th. And then Robinhood April 30th. So those 2 days next week are going to be pretty big for earnings. SoFi right here up about 2.1%. The Q's 438, that's up about 1.2. Nubank's up 2%. Reddit's up 1.4. Everything's pretty green. United Health is a little bit red. This one's just been demolished. This one's lost about $170 billion in market cap. This one has been destroyed off their earnings. Even if they sandbagged to the tune of losing about $200 billion in market cap. But United Healthcare, not the best guidance last week. That's down from basically 550 to 420. Spotify's green. Spotify got upgraded as well, I think, by Oppenheimer. And the argument there is that Spotify's moat is similar to Netflix. No one's going to cancel it during a recession. Which is, yeah, I mean, that's kind of fair. Like, who's going to cancel their music subscription during a recession? Like, if anything, people are just going to create playlists of sad songs to get through the recession. So from that perspective, I think there's an argument that Spotify holds up and they keep their user growth. And they don't necessarily get hit as badly as some of these other companies during a recession. GameStop, that's up 1%. Eli Lilly's up 0.5%. Bank of America, the financials doing great. American Express up 1%. Natural Gas, Kinder Morgan, that's up 2%. Intel's up 1.75%. Red Cat's up 1.7. Lyft's up 1.4. Target's up. Walmart's up. We're going to look at Walmart's financials in a second. It's kind of disgusting how much people are paying for Walmart compared to NVIDIA. I saw a chart yesterday and I couldn't believe why people are paying what they're paying for Walmart, but we'll look at that in a second. But Walmart up 1.2%. The retailer is getting some love. Palantir 92.40, still green. NVIDIA losing some of its green. There's the red candle right there. It was up almost 2%. Now it's holding on to 1%. So you're starting to see a little bit of the red. Verizon, nice recovery. That was down 5%. Now it's only down 1%. Verizon, not crazy. CleanSpark, the Bitcoin miners, are they doing well? Wow. CleanSpark up 10%. Marathon up 7%. Riot is up 7%. The Bitcoin miners needed a day like this. It's been pretty bad for them for the past couple of weeks. So Bitcoin miners doing okay. That's not bad. If you're heavy in the Bitcoin miners, you've started to get a little bit more momentum right here. Walmart again up 1.2, grabs at 415. That's up 2%. Palantir, some red candles on Palantir, 93.40 back down to 91.80. So you're starting to see a little bit more of the red creep in. Where is Tessie? Tessie was at 230. Tessie's not going red. 232. Okay, so Tessie's holding up. Tesla's holding up. Tempest AI, that one is up 5%. This is now number 10 in Cathie Wood's ARK. So this has become the 10th largest position in her portfolio. I believe Nancy Pelosi still owns a bunch of call options in the money at a $25 strike. Wow, Bitcoin. Now I know why the Bitcoin miners are doing well. Robinhood should be doing well along with MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy should be up like 3-4%. MicroStrategy is up 4%, 330. Coinbase, same thing, up 3%, 181. And Hood, 41, that's up 3%. Bitcoin looks like it wants 90. It's like 100 points away. Wow, this is a lot of green, dude. I haven't seen this much green in a long time. Like, look at the left-hand side of my screen. Everything is green. I mean, Lockheed Martin just went red. Raytheon just went red. Verizon just went red. Okay, that's fine. But Alpha's red. AMD just went green. Other than that, Broadcom's a little red. Are the semis all red? Are the semis? No, Broadcom's the only semi that's red. The only one. There might be some specific thing about Broadcom. NVIDIA is losing some of its gains. So that one could go red, but everything else is green. I know it's only 5 minutes until the open, but we got to enjoy what we can get, right? Okay, let me ask you guys in the chat what you think. Is this a fake little green? Is this green fake? What do you think? Is it going to leave soon? Do we last till the end of the day? Do we keep some of the green? Bitcoin getting rejected at 89.95. But trying to get some momentum. SoFi basically at 11, 1099 right there. S&P still holding up, 519. We were at 520, back to 519, but it is green. Do I trust the green? I don't know, but I don't think it really matters. Like, I hope we stay green, but if it doesn't, like, again, it's basically what I said yesterday. I'm getting desensitized to it. Like, if we go up 2%, great, but we lost 2% yesterday. So it goes back to where we were yesterday morning. It's like, okay, cool. You know, until we really develop a trend of multiple days in a row, then it's kind of like, all right, we can enjoy it in the moment, but it's not something that I would like trade off of or get super excited about. I think we need a couple weeks at this point to develop a real trend, given how choppy it's been. And unfortunately, until we get any trade deals, it's hard to imagine a trend can meaningfully develop itself. Semis are going red, are they? NVIDIa's still holding up. So NVIDIA's holding up, but the semis, Broadcom is the only one that's red. The other ones are, AMD is like fighting to stay green right now. Dell's up 2%, Micron's up 2%, ARM's up 2.2%. The rest of the semis are not doing horrible. TSM's almost up 1%. Mag 7s are all green. Amazon, NVIDIA, Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, and Apple, along with the crypto names as well. 75% of you say the green is fake. Wow. People absolutely don't trust any of this. I can't blame you. I cannot blame you. Tesla right here up 2%. By the way, we looked at a stat yesterday on the market close, but hedge funds, according to Morgan Stanley, have decreased their exposure to the Mag 7 the fastest in over 2 years. So we are seeing hedge funds, they have a 2-year low. They dumped 60% of their Mag 7 exposure last week per Morgan Stanley. And then a Bank of America survey showed that only 24% of investors now see the Mag 7 as the most crowded trade, down from nearly 60%. Gold apparently is the top trade out of all the people that were surveyed. 49% of correspondents believe that gold is where you want to be, which is not wrong. Gold is like, historically, you always want to have some gold, but it kind of feels like everyone's thinking gold is the trade, which I don't know, feels a little toppy given the multiples that these Mag 7 companies are trading at. But gold is beating the NVIDIAs and Teslas of the world in terms of more momentum. Hertz is getting a short squeeze, you think? Hertz right here. Wow, that's up 8%. Yeah. Again, they were down 10% yesterday off of a downgrade to $2. It is, someone mentioned in the chat the other day, what Bill Ackman's doing is very weird. Bill Ackman doesn't buy these like strategic positions in companies for like these short-term types of momentum. He buys amazing businesses and holds them for a long time like Buffett does. And recently he's been kind of all over the place. And it's weird. Like, I did not expect him to take a 20 million share position in Hertz when in reality, like, I mean, the only thing that was going to save Hertz is if Uber has a partnership with them. And I think he knows Uber's going to do a partnership with them, which is why he bought it. But yeah, usually he just buys stocks and holds them, but it's going a little bit different. And I think that's why people are interested in Hertz, because Ackman's obviously bought a ton of it now. He changed after he fumbled Netflix. I mean, yeah, I think that is also fair. Again, he sold Netflix at 165. Now it's at 1,000. I know he sold Netflix right there at around that 170 range. That's got to hurt you every day seeing that. But the solution isn't to just like day trade out of different positions. The solution is to find the next Netflix, right? If you did it once, you can do it again and then just go long on it. But he's changing his tune. It's very different. It's not the sort of same Ackman I think we saw 5 years ago. He's also an activist this time. Yeah, but he hasn't done activist investing in a while, right? He did say the other day he should go back to shorting because he wanted to short. He's been bearish United Healthcare all year, and he's wanted to short them. He said he was psychologically short, quote unquote. I even responded to him, I think 2 months ago. I was like, "Are you short?" He was like, "No, I'm only psychologically short." I was like, "Okay, understood." But yeah, now he's doing these like mini stakes in companies. Bitcoin right here, $50 away from 90. $15 away from that. $1 away from 90. Do we get it? Do we get it? 89.999. It's teasing us. It is teasing us right here. 89.987. It's got to get to 90, right? There you go. 90,000. 90,000 on Bitcoin. The last time we saw 90K was March 6th. March 6th. So around early March is when we saw 90,000. Wow. All right, there you go. That's great for Hoodie. It's up 3%. Great for Coinbase. That's up 5%. Obviously great for MicroStrategy. That's up 4.7%. Great for the Bitcoin miners. And if you are leveraged Bitcoin in something like BITX, which is 2x Bitcoin, great for any of those levered plays as well. I think we all have to be skeptical in terms of how much can this momentum sustain itself. But I mean, if 90 becomes a little bit of the new normal, or even this 87 to 90K range, I think people will be happy, given it was stuck in the low 80s for basically the past couple months. Cool. Okay, so that's what we got in the context of Bitcoin right here. Everything's still pretty green. Look at Tesla, 2.7. All right, so let's talk about Tesla. So let's do that poll right here. Again, 74% of you think that this green is fake. Let's see. Same question I asked yesterday. Do you think Tesla goes below 200 today? Now, almost 60% of you said yes yesterday. Well, that's when Tesla was down 7%. Now Tesla's green. So let's see if sentiment has changed now that Tesla's green. Wow, look at Bitcoin, 90.1. She's mooning. She's mooning. But let's see if you guys feel the same way about Tesla. So what is the street expecting? The street wants 46 cents per share, and they want 22.4 billion in revenue. Now, last year, what did Tesla do? Last year, Tesla did 45 cents a share and 21.3 billion in revenue. So if Tesla meets expectations, they will basically show zero growth, even if they meet expectations. If they don't meet expectations, which from the people that I talked to, the more likely outcome for Tesla is around 37 cents a share versus 45 cents. Bitcoin right now, 90.2. They're going to miss on earnings expectations. The question is, if they miss on expectations that are already pretty conservative, given they're factoring in no growth from last year. Robinhood, by the way, up almost 5% right here. Does that mean this thing tanks below 200? I think that's the question. And I think, one answer is yes, but I think there's a world in which if the macro is relatively green today, maybe we get any piece of good news that could uphold it. Tesla right here up 3%, or this could be a fake little pump going into earnings to get people excited, and then they have to bag all the stock. I don't know, dude. I think everyone's saying it's going to go below 200, which is why I'm thinking there's a shot it just doesn't. I know the numbers are going to be bad, but everyone knows the numbers are going to be bad. Just like delivery numbers, we knew it was going to be bad. Now it ended up being way worse than expected, but it wasn't that much worse to get the market to be like, all right, down 20%. We would need to see some significant guidance reductions or really bad numbers to see that play out. And I just don't know if that ends up happening. Is Rocket Lab red? Rocket Lab, why is Rocket Lab red? That's weird. Rocket Lab should be moving with the growth stocks. Robinhood is trying to get back to 42, baby. Look at that, 41.87. I mean, if Bitcoin can hold these levels into Robinhood earnings, I think they're going to crush earnings. It's Q2 that I'm worried about. Q1, I'm not worried about. I mean, that could maybe set us up for a little bit of a pump into those high 40s, maybe 50s, even if we can't sustain it. That would at least give us some momentum here. If we can keep it up. SoFi news. You guys are saying there's SoFi news. What's going on with SoFi? SoFi right here is up 3.67%. Okay, let me see what's going on with SoFi. SoFi teamed up. Oh, this is not new. I mean, I guess it's new, but it's not really. We heard of this before. They already did this. SoFi is working with Templum, which is a company that allows accredited investors to invest in private markets. There's a new class called the Cosmos Fund with sole exposure to Anthropic AI. So SoFi will now let you invest up to $25,000 minimum in private markets if you're an accredited investor into Anthropic via an SPV, which is a special purpose vehicle. Look, that's not bad. I mean, at the end of the day, more features on SoFi's platform is good for everybody. So if you are accredited, it looks like you have a chance to invest via SoFi into some startups. I mean, if that's enough to get it up 4%, then okay, there you go. SoFi right here up 4.16%. Where's Hoodie? There you go. Hoodie over 42, baby. Hoodie over 42. This is unilaterally happening because of Bitcoin, which is why I always think that Hood is, you know, a leverage play on Bitcoin to an extent, even though it's not only leverage against Bitcoin. But when Bitcoin goes up, Hood gets momentum. But also when Bitcoin goes down, Hood gets crushed, even if it's not as crushed as bad as like a MicroStrategy. So if you do have Hood, you do have exposure to Bitcoin. Hood right here, 42.16. That's up 4.89% currently right now. Do we have any macro data? Let me see if we have any pieces of data coming in right now. It's 9:45. We have no. I don't think we have anything today. No, nothing today. At least not what I'm seeing. At 10 a.m. we have manufacturing index. Okay, so at 10 a.m. in about 15 minutes we have manufacturing index. Outside of that, nothing else. We also have some Fed speakers that are speaking today, so we'll see what they say as well. Vertiv's up 5%. Wow, there you go. Data center play is getting some love. Vertiv, 5.03%. And then you got Netflix right here also. Look at that. 5.5%, 1,040. You know who's looking smart right now? Josh freaking Brown, bro. Sold Google for Netflix. I mean, I wouldn't have done the play. I still believe in Google as a diversified technology play over Netflix, but you can't blame the guy. He looks pretty damn smart right now. Netflix is really turning into that defensive recession play, which is incredible given the multiple it's trading at, but the market thinks that people are not going to unsubscribe from. I mean, how many of you would unsubscribe from Netflix in a recession? Like, how many people would realistically unsubscribe from? I don't really watch Netflix, but like my family does. So like, there's no way we would unsubscribe. And then in a recession, you pay $15 a month. Like, things would have to get really bad to cancel it for $15 a month to save that extra 15, right? Are we going to get to such a point where people need to save that extra 15, 20 bucks? If we're not, yeah, maybe Netflix continues to get momentum. Rocket Lab now goes green. That's up 1.5. Robinhood 42.42. Wow. Bitcoin 90.4. My goodness. My wife would kill me. Yeah, see? Like, Netflix is a staple now. Netflix is a staple. CleanSpark, the Bitcoin miners, 14% on the day. Really getting some love off Bitcoin. I wonder who's buying this right now. This looks like maybe some foreign entities, maybe some people that are kind of diversifying. I don't think it's just retail that's creating a $2,000 candle right here. Feels like big money might be coming in. SoFi as well, that's up 4.2%. NVIDIA, 98.80. NVIDIA continuing its green, up 2%. Tesla, 234, new high of the day, baby. That's up 3%. Grab still up 2.3. Palantir 92.63. That's up 2%. Lockheed Martin is red. Raytheon's red. Enphase up 5%. And then the S&P, new high of day, getting back 70% of what it lost yesterday. 521, up about 1.5% currently right now. I wonder what's creating this much of a pump, dude. Does someone know about a trade deal or something? What do you guys think? What do you guys think is the reason? Are we green because political insiders know something that the rest of us don't know? That's what I'm feeling like. I'm feeling like something's going to be announced. This is like a pretty aggressive green day. It's either a rebound from a shitty day that we had yesterday, which is fair, or like something's going to be announced pretty soon. Even TLT is up 1% as yields are coming down. Yeah, dude, yields are coming down, the dollar's going up, and stocks are going up. This is exactly what we need to be happening, and it's happening. And then you got Bitcoin going up as well. The 10-year now 4.373. That's down significantly from yesterday. Where's gold right now? Gold's also kind of down. Gold was at 3,500. Now it's at 34, which is good. That means people are shedding some gold and potentially going into stocks, which is what we want to see. So you got a lot of good things happening all at once right now. The question is why? The question is why? What if J Powell actually cuts? He's not going to cut. That's not happening. That is like, I would bet a lot of money J Powell does not cut. There is a 9% chance he cuts in May. He's not going to do it. The Fed, like, look, remember, the Fed can't be unpredictable. They have quite literally told us they're not going to cut without exactly saying they're not going to cut. And so for them to surprise cut, the market would be even more worried at that point. Like, what's breaking that is getting J Powell so worried about a cut? So I don't think it's expectations for a cut at all. I think something else is happening. The India deal it has good frameworks to get done, but it's not anywhere near close to getting done. And I wouldn't expect it anytime soon, even though there's been good, talks with JD Vance today. But I don't think we're going to get a trade deal anytime soon, unless people are just excited that like JD Vance is talking to India more. Japan Finance Minister Kato says he's arranging to hold a meeting with U.S. Treasury Secretary Besant, plan to discuss Forex issues. Do we really think we're green off of a Japan meeting with freaking JD, with Besant? I don't know. That's just a little bit too much hype for a meeting. Tesla right here, 235, up almost 4% right here. It feels like there's something else. This is a big Japan meeting. No, it's an important Japan meeting around currency and Forex. Especially if Japan starts buying a crap ton of US dollars, that would be super beneficial. But I don't know if that's the reason. Enphase up 4, S&P still up 1.4. Seeing some red candles across the board, so we're getting a little bit of a retrace, but very minimal compared to how green we are. Bitcoin not stopping though, 90.4. Not stopping at all. It's definitely algorithms. Okay, so here's the question. Who's selling into this? Who's selling into this? And who's taking advantage of this? I mean, if you think this is all fake, or if you think this is all temporary, which we've seen this happen like at least 10 times this year, can't blame anybody for swing trading anything they bought yesterday into this. Tesla, 235, keeping up the momentum. 54% of you say it's going to go below 200. So over 50%. Whereas Meta, yeah, Meta got hit yesterday badly. Meta right here, 491. So up from 479 to 491. Meta up about 2%. Selling some covered calls to hedge. Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a horrible day to sell some covered calls. For those who have covered calls on Tesla, like what strike? 240, 250? I mean, you got the pump you needed right before earnings to sell the covered calls. Now, if it runs to 250, the covered calls will be underwater. But I mean, I think most people are thinking it's not going to run. Then again, it's Tessie. When you think it's not going to run, that's when she has some fun. And you start to see some momentum. 241, 245. Any thoughts on Oscar Health? I looked at them. Their financials are good. I've never got super excited about the company. I know there was a lot of hype around these guys in December. Yeah, I just think there's other opportunities that are really exciting. That one's down about 2% right here. Again, with big tech trading like it is, I think there's just other opportunities that are cooler than Oscar Health. But the numbers aren't bad on that stock at all. Gene says I have 230 covered calls. A lot of you are in that 240 to 250 range. I have a $255, $200 caller. I don't hate that either. Does anyone think Elon is stepping down? I do not think Elon's stepping down. I don't know, dude. If that's the announcement today, that would be kind of insane. I don't think Elon's stepping down anytime soon. Tesla is not stopping. High of the day, 236.4. Who knows what's going on, bro? What's happening? What's happening? There's got to be something. This is too fishy. This is too much green without something going on that we don't know about. What? I'm trying to see if there's any headlines at all. This is one of those markets where you can't trust that someone doesn't know something that's happening here. Japan deal imminent. I mean, maybe. Did you see Elon's post? Very bullish. Let me see what Elon said. Oh, I think it was that clip that he posted, right? That clip about, it was like a clip from 2019 where he was talking about how much Tesla was getting shitted on by the media, but they kept putting up good sales. Yeah, I mean, that's fine, but like, does that translate to good sales this time? I don't know. I don't know. Warren Buffett's buying. Maybe. Then again, he's been buying more of Japan versus the United States. Gold right here, still up a little bit. Nvidia 98.63, Bitcoin 90.2, Robinhood 41.80, holding on to 5%, but that's really only because of Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin tanks, a lot of the Bitcoin miners, the Robinhoods, MicroStrategies, they're going to get hit. Grabs up 2.5 again. They have earnings on April 29th. And then you got Meta right here, 491. How far out do you sell covered calls? I used to like the monthlies, but I'm starting to like the weeklies more because there's so many news updates now day to day that I think it's easier to manage the weeklies. And it's not like the premium is that different, whether you do 30 days in advance or, 7 days every other week. But yeah, I like doing, I like doing 0.25 deltas over 0.30 just to be a little bit more conservative. If you want to be more aggressive, then you do 0.30, 0.45, especially if you don't care if the shares get called away. And then, yeah, I like doing them every Friday now, just so I can keep an eye on them. Sometimes you just never know what happens in a month. Netflix right here, continuing its strength. Look at that, 6% on the day. Netflix now, market cap, $445 billion, 1,047. Got upgraded to 1,200 yesterday by a couple different firms. Netflix continuing its momentum. Is Pelosi buying? Maybe. We haven't gotten a Pelosi release in a while. Like it's been last time we got it was January 14th when she bought Google, Amazon, Vertiv, Nvidia, and Tempest. So it's been a while since we've seen a real Pelosi update, which means she hasn't sold or bought anything. Bitcoin now losing some of its steam, 90.5 back down to 90. Looks like it's about to go below 90 right here. But she hasn't really done anything in this market. AMD goes red. Yes, AMD goes red. I mean, if Bitcoin falls, I would be not surprised to see the rest of these stocks take a little bit of a haircut as risk appetite dies down after these 20 minutes. Tesla as well, 235. Tesla's not stopping though. Tesla's still new high of the day, 235.73, up 3.6% currently right now. When should Netflix split? That's a good question. A lot of people thought they would split on the last one. I mean, if they get to like 1,200, 1,500, I think they would split after that. But they're doing their thing. I mean, I'm ready to watch You, which is one of the only shows I like on Netflix. I think that comes out in 2 days. So I'll definitely be glued to Netflix binging that show. But, someone said yesterday, like, how can Netflix actually, trade at this multiple? And I agree, it's a pretty aggressive multiple. But if they keep making content that is diversified, and like Stranger Things, You, etc. Like they just get people into the platform. Even if it's just one thing that you like, you're probably not going to unsubscribe, right? Not a lot of people subscribe to a platform just to watch one show and unsubscribe. Like some people do that, but the far majority of people are too lazy to do that, including myself. And, they'll go on Netflix here and there and they'll see what's on to watch, but they've got you as a subscriber. I think my family's been subscribed to Netflix for probably, what is it? At least a decade, if not. I think we subscribed around that 2014, 2015 range. And now they're getting WWE, NFL, all these live events. So all of that stuff is giving them some more momentum. I watched Severance. I speed watched it. It's like speed reading, but instead you watch. And I thought it was okay. It was good. It was not amazing. I know some people loved it. I thought it was very philosophical. But I mean, like, You is better to me than Severance. You is like a better show. So it's one of those shows that I just think it's cooler to be engaged and helps you keep your attention. But it was a big hit for Apple, and that's why they renewed it for season 3. But see, Apple's got to keep. See, the thing about Netflix is they've constantly, for the past decade, they put up series after series, and original, not licensed. Like, they build it in their Netflix studios. That's not easy to do. It's just not easy to do over and over and over again. And they're doing it, and they're doing it profitably. And that's another reason I think Netflix is getting this momentum. Apple right here up 2.3, Amazon's up 2.1, Hims is up 2.0. Let's see if we have any other headlines right here. Again, I don't see anything that's explaining this green other than a bit of a rebound. Citigroup just said they don't believe Trump will fire Fed's Chief Powell. Maybe that's the update. Like, the market thinks that this whole firing Fed Powell stuff, which was the fear, by the way, Tesla 237, after Trump put out that tweet yesterday, maybe the market's coming back to reality and saying, okay, he's not going to fire Powell, which is like why we shouldn't be that afraid. That could be an argument. So maybe that's one thing. Citi also said they expect rate cuts in June, not in May. They also said the dollar is still the world's reserve currency despite uncertainties about U.S. policies. And the dollar is up today. So yields coming down, the dollar going up, gold coming down slightly, Bitcoin going up, and then markets doing okay. I mean, that is a recipe for potentially more increased confidence, which is manifesting itself in terms of these equity prices. And potentially also less volatility right here. Okay, let's see what else. Oh, Richmond Fed. All right, so we got manufacturing data. Let me pull this up. Manufacturing data. That should be out right now. Okay, we got it. It came in at -13 versus -6. -13 versus -6. Richmond Manufacturing Index. -13 versus -6 expected. Markets, what is the reaction to that? -13 versus -6. I think that was the main. Yeah, that was the main one. Oh, wait, hold on. I was looking at the wrong thing. No, we came in at -4 versus -5. Why did it say -13 originally? I think that's -4. No, I'm looking at the right one. Oh, there's two of them. Okay, the shipments index is -17 versus -2, and then manufacturing is -13 versus -5. Okay, that doesn't seem good. Where's the S&P? Are we tanking on that S&P? No, we're hitting high of days, 522. Interesting. Okay, let me see if I can get more coverage on this. That one seems to be aggressive. ECB is about to make an announcement as well. 522.13. Perhaps in hopes of a rate cut. Yeah, I mean, that could be the argument, right? That if this number comes in super negative, the Fed's going to realize, hey, growth is slowing down. We need to seriously think of cutting. I don't think anything's going to convince them in May. I don't think that number is going to be convincing. Bitcoin right here going green as soon as that number comes out. Look at that, 90.3. That is interesting. I think that's just. Let me see if rate cut probabilities went up. We were at 9% 20 minutes ago. Currently, we are at still 9.1%. That hasn't changed. Let's see if we can get some more coverage on that. Then we'll keep going from there.
President Trump launches all the tariffs. The U.S. underperforms. I think David and Carl, part of the explanation here is that going into so-called Liberation Day, the U.S. had been outperforming. I mean, the U.S. exceptionalism trade was alive and well. U.S. equity markets, by so many measures, were extremely expensive.
Oh, the ECB president's going to be on. Okay, cool. So I guess we'll get to hear how she's thinking about this. And if she says anything positive about good negotiations going on, that could also be a catalyst.
So some of that is just the unraveling of that. But it is something to talk about when it comes to who has economic leverage and how much pain the market is judging The IMF, for its part today, out this morning with a new global growth forecast. No surprise, it slashes its global growth forecast from in the low 3% down to the 2s. And then here's what it says for the U.S. U.S. is only going to grow now 1.8% this year, which was a cut of about 1%. Importantly, though, not a recession. So we're going to talk about the IMF chief next hour about what goes into all that and how they're thinking about the damage here.
Okay, so a contraction in the Richmond Fed index means that, or a negative read means that we're contracting, which means we are doing less manufacturing in this particular manufacturing index. That means the economy is pulling back. Theoretically, that's bad, right? That means less growth. S&P is at the high of day right now because I think, as one of you said in the chat, if we have less growth, we have less inflation, which means we have a higher chance of rate cuts. So I guess that's the reason. But again, that doesn't seem like the reason we're green today. It definitely doesn't seem the reason we're sustaining the green. It seems like there's something else going on behind the scenes that we're going to find out about soon that's explaining this green. Like, I think people expected a little bit of a green rebound yesterday, but not this much of a green rebound. That means recession. I mean, it means we are closer to a recession. It doesn't mean we immediately have a recession, but yeah, granted, recession means rate cuts. Which is, another reason I think the Fed is not cutting is because they're trying to hold their cutting superpowers for when we actually are closer to a recession than not. And, based on the macro data we're looking at, some indicators say recession, other indicators say there is no recession anytime soon. Granted, some of those indicators that say there's not a recession could be lagging, like jobs data, which has always been a lagging indicator. So I think the Fed's kind of holding out until they are more definitive on the probabilities of it. Robinhood's still at 42, Bitcoin at 90.2. But we're not necessarily seeing those probabilities easily manifest themselves for a Fed cut. Keep refreshing Trump's Twitter feed. Trump's been tweeting, but he's talking about illegal immigration today. That's all he's been talking about. I mean, his last tweet was, I have agreed to do the commencement address at two really great places, the University of Alabama and West Point. Stay tuned for times and dates. So he's going to be giving some graduation speeches. And then he's talking about immigration. And then he said, a great new book by Dana Perino, a Fox News star and a very good person, is called I Wish Someone Had Told Me. The title says it all, much to be learned about life and success. Get it now. So he's promoting books as well. But there's no talk about tariffs. No talk about tariffs today. Amit, if there's one stock to load the boat on, what would it be and what price? That's a great question for the chat. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? What would be one stock and what price would that stock be where you back up the truck and load up? I mean, I think I have a couple of stocks, and ironically, we were there a couple weeks ago on April 8th. I mean, obviously, if Hood got below 30, that would be back up the truck for me. Pounter got back to 60, 55. That's more back up the truck. I think Tesla, if we get anywhere near 150, dude, like if we get to 180, I think I just auto buy. Like, I think the robotics thesis is enough for me, even if it's a further out timeline. I have enough conviction in robotics that I don't care if it's dead money for a while. I just want to be in that story if it begins to play out anytime soon. So if we do see below 200, I would get excited for Tesla. But I think back up the truck is closer to 150 and below. S&P, by the way, up almost 2%, 1.7 on the day. S&P is continuing to ignore any of the bad macro data from the manufacturing index and just continuing to get higher. Hood sub 30, Tesla at 170. I see Hood at 25, Rocket Lab at $9. A lot of you guys say Tesla around that 160, 170 range. Apple 120, dude. Something would have to go bad for Apple to get to 120. I would hope it doesn't get that bad. But we would have to see some real pain to get Apple at 120. We'll have ECB's president on in a little bit, and then we'll see what she has to say. If she says anything good about the U.S. trade relations, that could be a little bit of a pump as well. Doug says, I'm selling some high speculative winners today, like Rocket Lab, so I have cash to buy a Tesla dip. See, everyone's expecting a Tesla dip, dude. I don't know. Everyone's expecting a Tesla dip. I just feel like when everyone's expecting it, Tesla tends to go the opposite every time. every freaking time. But the numbers are going to be bad. So I can't blame people for expecting it. Like these numbers are going to be horrendous. And the people are saying energy is going to save it. Dude, I don't think energy is going to save it. Energy is not, we saw the energy numbers for April. Like it wasn't that impressive. It was good, but it's not like, oh my God, it's growing like 700% or something. No, it's growing nicely. And energy is like a couple billion. Like it's not really going to feed the top line at all. I think the surprise, and I've been saying this for the past couple of quarters, and I think eventually Elon's going to do this, but he needs to get on the earnings call and needs to say, hey, we have a letter of intent, an LOI from a major manufacturing hub, and they want to buy 50,000 Optimus robots. They didn't pay us for it. They didn't put down a deposit, but they told us we're ready to buy if you guys can manufacture it. The day he says that, which I don't think it would be that hard to get a Walmart to be like, hey, do you want 50,000 robots? Walmart would be like, sure, if you can make it for us, boom. And then Elon could just take that to the bank and be like, hey guys, look, I got a 50,000 robot order. It doesn't have to happen anytime soon, but in terms of like just the perception of Optimus getting momentum, I feel like that would be really easy to pull off. And I think he announces that. I think all the analysts just like, they eat that up and they're like, hey, this Optimus story, it's starting to gain traction, yada, yada. And that could be the rabbit he pulls out of his hat. But I don't know if that happens this earnings. NVIDIA right here, 99. NVIDIA trying to get back to 100, up 2.2%. Currently right now. Oh yeah, Tesla puts are cheaper. That's correct. I mean, if you want some cheap protection, there you go. Tesla's up 4%, so your puts are a little bit more cheaper today. What are your thoughts on Meta? I love Meta. I want to buy Meta. I just want to wait till earnings. I personally, I just don't want to buy before earnings. I don't want to buy any of the big tech names before earnings. I really just would like to see what numbers they've been. If I have to buy it higher than what it is today, then so be it. But I would like a little bit more peace of mind before getting into any of these names. S&P, dude, look at that. 1.86, new high of day. This one just keeps chugging along. She's not stopping. She's not stopping that easily, even with the crappy manufacturing data. Dude, someone knows something. Either I'm overthinking it, which maybe I am, and it's just a green day for a green day. But every time we went green, we've had a reason. Even if the reason last Friday was as simple as the White House press secretary saying we have 15 deals lined up. Like she said that at 135, by 140, we went from down 2.2% to up 2.7%. Just the smallest of headlines has been taking us higher. And today we've got nothing and we're green. Like, I just find that hard to believe. I find that hard to believe. Okay. Oh, Lulu and Nike. Yeah, that's another thing, dude. Lulu and Nike have been running this morning. You're not wrong there. Look at that. Lulu's up 3%. Nike, maybe that Vietnam deal is coming. That's up 1.3. And then Levi's was green as well. So Levi up another 1.83%. The ECB president's going to be on in a bit. Let's see, if they say anything positive. But oh, there they are. They're on right now. All right, here we go. Here is the ECB president. We're looking for her to say something positive about U.S. trade relations. If she does, maybe the market likes it.
The ECB President, Christine Lagarde, great to have you here. Welcome.
Lovely to be with you, Sarah. Good morning.
It's nice to see you again. Nothing to talk about here at the IMF meetings. Trump's tariffs are clearly front and center. I'm curious how much it's changed your view on Europe's trajectory.
Well, it has an impact, and we were at a stage where all the previous shocks that we have taken, from pandemic to energy crisis to very high inflation, were really fading away, and the disinflationary path is clearly on its path as we had expected. And then a series of shocks hit our screen. Number one, the tariff. Number two, important as well, is the whole defense momentum that is taking up in Europe and which has led, in particular, Germany to increase significantly its commitment. And number three, and this is really a result of the tariff announcements and subsequent developments, structural reforms, which Europe had been talking about, which had been described in various reports, which Europe is now saying, okay, now it's time, and it's Europe's hour to actually do the things that have to be done. So it obviously has an impact. Some of it positive, some of it negative. I think on the growth front,
Sure.
we've always said that it would be a lose-lose, and we're seeing it.
I'm curious what your reaction was when you saw President Trump unveil those so-called reciprocal tariffs, and that 20% tariff was coming on all European goods into the United States. What were you thinking?
You know, I try to look at things in a very positive way and focused on my mandate. That's what I have to do, and that's what a central banker has to do. So I look at that and I think, okay, where are the vulnerabilities? Who are the trading partners with which we deal most? And how do we address vulnerabilities if we have them? And how do we secure those trading relationships anyway? And when you look at it, Europe is difficult to understand. For most people, there's Germany, there is France, there is Italy, but then there is Europe. And Europe is the federation of 27 member states. And if you look at trade, 65% of our trade is intra-Europe. So our main, Europe's main trading partner is Europe. So that's number one, which means lower the internal barriers to make sure that trade really moves around both in goods and services matter enormously. So that's, point number one. Point number two, we have to be attentive to the developments of the relationships between the US, the rest of the world, the US and Europe. And we have seen very successive movements, announcement and then a pause and then some exceptions. So we have to be very attentive. We have to be agile in the way in which we respond. And that agility means that we have to be ready to take action. Either we cut, either we pause, but we will be data dependent to the extreme.
Well, okay, I'll get to monetary policy in a moment, but just on the trade talk. So now you're at 10%, and there's some breathing room to get to some sort of trade deal. How do you see that?
I'm not sure we're 10%, by the way, Sarah, because we still have higher rates on aluminium and steel and the car industry.
Okay.
So
I was talking about the blanket.
Yeah.
But yes.
But if you look at the real tariffs in the relationship between Europe and the US, we were at around 3%, and we moved up to 13% more. Sorry, we were a little less than 3% actually on goods. So it does increase the tariffs, yes.
So how do you see it playing out, these trade talks? Is there scope for a negotiation, for a deal?
I am sure that there is scope for negotiations. I mean, it's in the nature of policymakers to want to sit down and argue their case and point out their imperatives, their red lines, their vulnerabilities, and I'm sure that they can be a dialogue. I would be surprised if there was not such a thing. It will be a process, let's face it. But I think that there will be negotiations, yes.
You said that the intra-Europe trade is most important for Europe.
Yep.
What about the US, European trade? How exposed is Europe really economically?
Well, as I said to you, it's of the non-intra-Euro area trade, okay? So 65% is Euro area and European Union. But of that non-Euro area trade, the US is 17%, okay? So it's not a gigantic movement of goods and services. By the way, really it's important to remember that we ship back and forth goods. We ship back and forth services. And if the US if we have a surplus in goods, the US has a surplus in services.
Right.
So it's not a complete wash, but it's a lot less than the numbers that I've seen floating around.
That's one of the fears, actually, is that Europe can punish the US on the services front, taxing digital ad revenues, for instance, in Europe. Is that something that you think is realistic?
There will be a negotiation process. And as part of the negotiations, people show their strength, keep their cards close to their chest, they drop them as and when suited. I'm not privy to that. And I'm sure that there will be a will to negotiate. That I'm certain of.
The answer is yes. Basically, she's saying, hey, if the US doesn't play fair game with us, we're going to tax the crap out of Meta, Google, Amazon, etc. So it seems very likely they will go after services, which we all knew about. That's not new news if the US goes after physical goods.
The president has repeatedly said that Europe has been ripping off US automakers, for instance. I mean, has Europe been unfair to American industry?
I really don't think so. There is so much, joint interest between those two economic continent, if I can call it that way, because Europe is a vast economic region, 450 million consumers, very advanced economies altogether. And there is a lot of foreign direct investment between the two countries. There is a lot of trade going on, goods and services. So there might be sectors where serious negotiations need to be had. But it's going to be, as always with trade. You know, I was trade secretary for 2 years of my public life. It's unbelievably complicated because you have thousands of, I think it's more than 8,000 lines of custom duties for all those products. And of course, it's going to require a tedious, serious work to get down to what is acceptable to parties and where the vulnerability points are addressed. And it's not just on one side, it's on both sides.
You were also head of the IMF. I feel like you do not like tariffs. Is that true?
I'm a free trader by sort of nature and practicalities, because free trade has always enhanced the overall growth, has been a serious contributor to the development of the economies, all economies. Then how it is distributed, how the benefits of trade are distributed in any given country is something for that country to decide. But I think that if you look at the aggregate, yes, trade has always been beneficial.
It's interesting, as a result of all of this, the euro has gotten stronger and European markets like Germany have outperformed US counterparts. Why do you think that is?
You're correct in that it's a bit counterintuitive. Initially, and when we had done our projections, we anticipated that the dollar would strengthen and that the euro the euro would appreciate, the dollar would appreciate, the euro would depreciate. It's not what we saw. And there have been some counterintuitive movements in various categories. Currency is certainly one. The German market has obviously been shocked in a positive way by the program of the soon to be put in place German government, with a commitment to defense, with a commitment to a big fund for infrastructure development, with the debt brake being put aside when it comes to investment in defense. This is a major push in the direction of let us spend the money that we save here. And there's a lot of saving in Europe to make sure that the infrastructure works better, to make sure that our defense, which is a vulnerability, is improved. So that's hardly surprising. On the euro, and it really reflects on the fundamentals of Europe, on what the confidence level is with respect to Europe. Europe is, I think, associated with freedom, free trade, we just talked about it, stability of prices. I think we are working as hard as we can to deliver that price stability. And credibility. Sometimes we are criticized because we are overruled. Oh, too much regulation in Europe. Well, sometimes to stick to those rules and to apply the rules gives a level of certainty, sometimes cumbersome, which is why simplification is very much in the cards, but it reflects.
Do you think there's a credibility question with US assets right now?
We have to look at where the markets are going, and I don't think that I could pass a judgment on that. It's a matter of how investors behave.
So euro strengthening, is it getting too strong? And if it continues to strengthen, what sort of options would you look at? Would you consider intervention?
I don't comment on exchange rate, and obviously we monitor, and obviously we take that into account for purposes of identifying inflation and the risk that we have.
Well, it should help with your fight on inflation. I mean, you sound pretty confident that you're going back to 2%.
Yeah, we are. The latest reading was 2.2%, and I think that we're heading towards our target in the course of 2025. So that disinflationary process is so much on track that we are nearing completion. But we have the shocks,
right?
And the shocks will be a dampen on GDP. It's a negative shock to demand. The net impact on inflation will depend on what countermeasures are eventually taken by Europe. Then we have to take into account the fiscal push by the defense investments, by the infrastructure fund that we talked about, and the impact of the structural reforms. But I think it's an interesting composition and a fascinating moment to observe how it's going to unpack and hopefully be executed.
I guess my question on policy then is downside risk on inflation, at the same time downside risk on growth and a potential growth
I would put
shock.
it the other way around. I think downside risk on growth,
Yeah.
which I think is pretty much a given, and not just in Europe, by the way. The net impact on inflation, I think we need to continue checking the data, because whether you look at the very short term, whether you take into account the countermeasures, whether you anticipate some increased trade of Chinese goods into Europe, all that will have an impact. So I can't say, definitely downside risk materialization on inflation. We have downside risk in the short term, but the net impact to be
TBD.
seen.
I get, because my question was going to be, why aren't you cutting maybe faster or even larger, given a more benign inflation backdrop and bigger risk to growth at this point?
As I said, the net impact on inflation is to be seen. There is too much variables coming into play for that purpose. And as I said, we have the options on the table. We will be data-minded, data-dependent, not data-minded, data-dependent. And in terms of options, we may well cut. We may well pause. It's really going to be meeting by meeting, data dependency. We have, the criteria of our monetary policy stance well established. It has served us well so far. We will stick to that and will be as predictable as is possible with the data that are coming in.
You've gotten props from President Trump last week and then again this week for cutting 7 times at a time where he would like to see the Federal Reserve cut interest rates. What was your reaction to that post?
Monetary policy decisions are driven by the economic circumstances that we face. And I think that all central bankers around the world are loyal to their mandate and observing the facts and analyzing the data as well as they can. This is what we've done in Europe. We have inflation coming down seriously. As I said, last reading 2.2%. Our projection for 25 is likely to be 2.1%. Inflation expectations are very anchored around the 2%, including in the medium term, and we have growth which is projected to be 0.98%, depending on whose projections you're looking at. The US is a different situation, and the impact of tariffs will be different on the two economies.
What is your expectation there? Higher inflation in the US?
I think the IMF came out with some projections this morning, and they did increase the inflation projection for the United States. But it's inevitable. If you raise tariffs on goods coming in, this is increasing prices, added to which it creates uncertainty. So the combination of the two is bound to wake up a little bit.
I know you're close with Chair Powell. I mean, I know you communicate pretty often. Have you talked to him about some of this new political pressure?
We're both used to political pressure in one way or the other. But as I said, I have immense respect for the work that he does and for his loyalty to his job and to being as diligent, disciplined as possible to deliver on his mandate. For him, I think, I'm sure, as it's for me, the mandate is our compass. We have to deliver on our mandate.
If there is an attempt by the executive branch in this country to fire Chair Powell before the end of his term, do you see that as a material risk to markets?
I very much hope not.
Hope that doesn't happen.
Hope that it is not a risk.
What would it mean for the markets?
Look, I'm not going to comment on market reaction to hypotheticals that I hope are just not on the table.
Understood. But speaking of some of the reaction here, I'm wondering how you're feeling about the European banking system, if there's been any spillover, considering some of the financial stress we've seen as a result of these announcements.
We haven't seen spillovers. And what I can say is that under the regulations that we have, which is Basel III, with reference to a Swiss town in which we meet on a regular basis, but which has brought all the regulators and sometimes the supervisors as well together to make sure that we don't have a cataclysmic disaster like we did in 2008. I was there. I don't want to see that again. So our banking system is, I think, solid. The banks are far more better capitalized than they were before. And I think the probably more scrutiny applied to supervision than was the case at the time has served us well. And we should really abide by those principles. Not always pleasant, not always, stress testing and scrutiny is always resented because you want to run your business. But
all right, so I think that's pretty much what we got from the ECB president. She didn't say anything that crazy. She kept using the word data dependent many, many times, similar to JPOW. So it looks like they're going to be looking at the data as well. The core thing I think we got from that is, hey, how are you going to go negotiate with the United States in this trade deal? And her number one argument was that it seems like Europe will get into the services part of tariffs if the United States plays really aggressive in the context of negotiations, which is fair. S&P 500 very close to the high of day, 523 up 1.78%. That wasn't new. I think everyone expected that Europe's going to go after Amazon and Meta and Google if we go after physical goods being imported from the EU. So I don't think there was anything that was super positive said in that interview, but there was definitely nothing super negative either. It's not like she was super upset. So from that perspective, I think it was a decent interview, but it wasn't like something the markets needed to meaningfully react to. We do have an update right here from Doge. We're going to get Steve on in about 10 minutes or in like 2 minutes. I'm going to call him right now. He has about 15 minutes he can spend. He can't join the show for the whole time, but he can join for about 15 minutes. So this is coming from Fox. Major Tesla investors expect Elon to provide clarity when he will completely disengage from Doge during a Tesla conference call from the closing bell today. That could be the reason for why Tesla's pumping. Again, this is a Fox headline. This could be fake. This came out at 9:38. That's when we kind of, in the first 10 minutes of the day, saw Tesla really pump. The sources could be wrong. But if the sources are correct and we're going to get some clarity on when he's leaving Doge and if he's leaving Doge soon, this is what Dan Ives has been talking about for the past couple of weeks as well. That could be a big catalyst. Everyone's saying Tesla goes below 200. If Elon says, I'm leaving Doge by the end of June, or I'm leaving Doge by the end of July, I mean, there's an argument right there easily for Tesla to pump just based off the idea that Elon's not going to be spending his time in Doge. So, I mean, that might be the catalyst. Obviously, every stock is pumping, so you're getting a ton of momentum, which is helping Tesla, but that could also be one of the reasons why Tesla's getting some love there as well. Tesla right here, 235. It's up about 3.45% currently right now. Steve, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Ahmed. How are you?
I am doing very well. We have a lot of people who are curious about your thoughts on the current state of the market, along with your thoughts on Tesla. So, yeah, I think we'll start with markets. How are you thinking about the current state of the markets right now?
I don't know. Nothing's really changed for me in the past couple of weeks. I'm a little annoyed at how certain things are happening, but it is what it is.
So, okay, let's talk about two things, and then I want to get into Tesla. First, JPOW. Obviously, the Trump tweet yesterday was a bit annoying to you. I think the entire market kind of fell because of that tweet. Looks like there's some sources today saying that he's not going to fire JPOW. That's why market's rebounding. But if the Fed or if the president were to meaningfully try to get rid of JPOW, what's your reaction to that? And do you think that would be a bad situation for the markets?
Look, you know that I don't like to get political. I'm not really a political person. I think no matter who is in office, trying to fire a Fed chair is a bad move. It's an independent body. It's always been an independent body. And it takes us down a very slippery slope because it was set precedent for following presidents or even the same president to make similar changes in the future when things are not going how they feel that it should be going. I think it would send a very bad message. I don't think the markets would react well to it. And I think it's a dangerous slope that it would set us down.
Do you think he would actually try to do it or no?
I don't know. I'm not him. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, there are some reports coming out today saying that he's backing off from that, which is why I think markets could be pumping. But I agree. It would set a
Look,
dangerous
he may
precedent.
just be trying to apply pressure. It could be a lot of things. I'm not him. It's not so. I don't know.
Okay, I want to show you this stat. I told the audience I would show this stat. I think you saw it yesterday. But what you're seeing right here on the screen are NVIDIA's forward multiples. They're currently trading at 17 times next year's EPS estimates. If you take off 10% of their EPS, they would still only be trading at 19 times next year's EPS. Walmart is trading at 31 times next year's EPS. Any thoughts on the discrepancies between these valuations?
So I think you know what I'm going to say about this, and I'd rather use a different example to make the point that you want to make. And I'd rather look at Walmart versus Amazon, because when you look at Walmart year to date, it's up 4.5%. Yet Amazon is down almost 22%. And Amazon is trading at 26.5 times this year's earnings, while Walmart is trading at 35.5 times this year's earnings. And in my opinion, Walmart has a lot more tariff impact than Amazon, because it does not have AWS and it does not have diversified revenue. So it's pretty wild that Walmart is trading at still over 30 times next year's earnings, and Amazon is trading at 22 times next year's earnings. So it's very similar to what I would say with NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA is trading at a very discounted multiple, even if you up it and say they're going to be off by 10% this year, which I really don't think that's going to be the case. So they generate $92 billion in net income versus $102 billion this year based on the previous projections. I don't think that's a big deal. I think it's a nothing burger.
The other thing about Walmart is they sell everything from China. So
yeah, that's something that I don't understand, why this market is just entrenched in Walmart and Costco. And, I continue to say that I think we need to rethink what are recession-proof companies and what companies you want to own in a recession. Sure, people are still going to shop at Walmart. People still need all the goods that they carry at Walmart. But when you get into a recession, there is a good chance that budgets are going to get slashed. People are going to spend less money. And with tariffs, you can't convince me that the cost of goods is not going up for Walmart.
yeah, I mean, I think everyone's trying to figure out, Hims, by the way, down about 1% right here, why the multiple is going to big box retailers that obviously don't have the tech flexibility that an Amazon and NVIDIA have, but I guess they're blue chip stocks. And
no, that's exactly what it is. And what I was going to say is people are stuck in an old world view of thinking. This has just been when times get difficult. There's always been very specific stocks that people flock to: Walmart, Costco, Pepsi, Coca-Cola. Now, Pepsi's got different issues, but if you look at Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola's doing pretty well this year.
yeah,
And I would argue that they have a lot of tariff exposure because they sell their products in 200 countries and territories. So Procter & Gamble, I think that we need to get away from what are recession-proof stocks of the old days and what are recession-proof stocks now. I mean, how is Apple not a recession-proof stock? They have 2 to 3 billion installed devices. They have huge upgrade cycles. Nobody's getting rid of their products. Everybody is glued to their cell phone, whether it's an Android phone or an iPhone. That's the last thing you're getting rid of. You're not getting rid of that. It's a requirement in today's day and age. And they generate $1.9 billion a week in pure profit. How that's not considered a recession-proof stock is crazy. Oh my God. If absolute tragedy occurs and they only do $1 billion a week in pure profit, think about it. It's still $1 billion a week. Where's Walmart do for the year? 15 billion, 20 billion?
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
They still make Walmart's entire year in less than half a year.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. I think it's the blue chip mentality that a lot of people have right now on some of these names. Do you have any thoughts on Bitcoin at 90K?
No, not really. And I won't have any thoughts on Bitcoin if it goes to 250,000 or if it goes to 50,000.
Okay, I get it. But like, it's outperforming the NASDAQ, which it's not supposed to do. And it is.
That's an unfair statement to make, because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is supposed to do whatever Bitcoin does. It doesn't correlate to anything. It shouldn't correlate to anything.
I know, but historically, it's correlated against the NASDAQ pretty aggressively.
Yeah, you know why that is, because people have more capital, they're moving money around, they're buying more Bitcoin. So it's not for me. I am not a Bitcoin person at all. I think there are several projects that are very interesting. Bitcoin is not one of them.
Okay, so let's end it off with Tessie, which is up about 4% on the day. What do you expect on earnings today?
If he doesn't announce a robot tsunami that's coming at the end of the year, I think it's going to be a really bad after hours.
You think below 200 is very possible?
Yes. I would actually say very probable. Very, very probable. Only because he needs to get everybody excited about Optimus. And look, when we run the numbers, like I don't think a lot of people read my last Tesla article a couple of weeks ago. I ran all the numbers. I used a starting point and an end point for an Uber trip. That was 14 miles on a Saturday with no traffic. Okay. It was $37, and after a discount, it went to $30. It was on a Saturday with no traffic. You think about the whole premise around robotaxis is people are going to ditch their cars and they're just going to use ride hail. In order for that to work, you would have to make it cheap enough where it made financial sense to do that. 20 round trips is $1,200 at that price point. A lot of people drive more than 14 miles to their job. Not to mention, this was a Saturday with no traffic at like 2 in the afternoon. So let's just use those numbers, for instance. At $1,200 price point, you have to get it down by at least 60%, 70% that you can have this being an option, because people are going to need more rides to go drop kids off, to go to the supermarket, all these other things that you do. The price point doesn't make sense when you can get a vehicle and insurance for roughly $500 a month, and then figure another $100, $150 a month on gas. I mean, the numbers have to make financial sense to do it, and they need to show a pricing model of how they're going to be able to save people money and have enough vehicles where this actually makes sense to do. It still took 14 minutes to get an Uber, and this is in the middle of Nassau County, Long Island. That's very hot.
What if Elon says he's leaving Doge today?
I think you'll have an immediate effect. I don't know if it will last, but I think that if he announces that today, it's up 20% after hours. But I don't know if it lasts. There will be an immediate euphoric moment.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to say he leaves Doge, but if he says, hey, I'm leaving by the end of the summer or something, like at least people have certainty, clarity, right? And
I think that it's one of the biggest gripes right now, and I think that it'll be very good in the short term, but I think after a week or two, it'll dissipate on a lot of people. The narrative will be, it doesn't matter that the damage is already done to the brand. Robotaxi is not going to generate the revenue that everybody thinks. It's just not.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's fair to be skeptical on that. We got the Austin launch coming soon. I mean, the Model 2 might be delayed. So I think those could be headwinds. But I think Doge and any Optimus news, it could rip people's faces off today if they're short.
It could. I mean, a lot of the bad news is priced in. I think they're missing revenue by at least $2 billion. When I look at their highest delivery revenue in the past several years versus the deliveries that they came up with, and then putting a bigger growth rate on energy than they've ever had, I can't get to a number where they get anywhere near top line. And even in my bull case, they missed by $2 billion. So we'll see if I modeled it correctly or not. But I think that's priced in. I think everybody knows that that's incoming. it's more about what they say for the year, and I think they really need to make headway on Robotaxi and on Optimus. But look, a lot of people are excited about Robotaxi. I don't think a lot of people are thinking it further. I really don't.
All right, last question for you. We are green across the board. S&P is up 2%, kind of recovering everything it lost yesterday. Do you trust this green, or you think it's just a random day?
I don't know if trusting it is the right phrase. I think that we bottomed on that Sunday night when I said we bottomed in the pre-market. I mean, I don't think we're going to get down to 4,800 again, but we very well could. I think that you're going to start to see deals come through. And I think you're going to start to see things that the market likes. And look, it's much more about what Sindor Pichai says on Thursday. It's much more about what Jassy says next week, what Nadella says next week, what Zuckerberg says, and what Jensen says at the end of May. It is much more important about the earnings, the guidance. And you look at Verizon. Verizon reported today, and they reaffirmed guidance for the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Verizon's down a little bit. I guess people don't like a 6.3% dividend yield on a company that you're not getting rid of a cell phone.
It basically recovered. It's down 0.14%, so it recovered everything.
Yeah, because it was a silly sell-off. People are trying to talk about how they're shedding customers, but on a quarter-over-quarter basis, they generated more revenue. They're reaffirming guidance. I mean, it is a new scale utility play, because guess what? Utility companies aren't generating a 6% yield. And when the Fed starts cutting, watch Verizon go to 50 or so, because they'll be able to refinance some of their higher debt, expand margins a bit, and you're going to be losing the money on the risk-free rate of return trade. And people are going to move into higher quality dividend names.
Yeah.
And I think Verizon's one of them that's going to catch a bid.
All right, Steve, thank you. Steve's Twitter right there in the chat, and he might be able to join us for Tesla earnings. If not, then we'll talk to him later this week.
Yeah, I'm going to join for Tesla. I'm very interested in what happens, and I don't think it's going to be good. I mean, I hope I'm wrong for everybody's sake, but
dude, let's buy some $300 calls expiring this week for the hell of it.
No, you're better off going and buying legit scratch-offs at that point.
No, that's true.
You are, because at least a scratch-off, you have at least a 50-50 chance of winning.
You don't think there's a 50-50 chance Tesla pumps to 300 by the end of this week?
I mean, technically, either they don't or they do, so it is 50-50, but I mean, I don't think that it's probable that they're going to pump to 300 unless he comes out with. The problem is, right now, it's so beaten up that all he has to do is basically say he's leaving Doge and it has a chance of hitting 300. I just don't know that he's going to say that.
Well, that Fox News is reporting, some sources are saying that he's serious about giving a real timeline, but obviously we're not going to find out until the call. So.
Yeah, but remember, he's also, and the problem is anybody going to take it seriously? Because he really doesn't care what people think. And he really doesn't care about the brand damage to Tesla. If he did, he wouldn't have done any of this. So I don't know if you can really trust the timeline if he gives it, because something may happen and he may make an excuse of why he needs to stay or this or that. So to me, it's more about the long term and what he says about Optimus, because I think that is the real driver of the company going forward.
All right, Steve, thank you. We'll catch you in a couple hours for Tesla earnings. Later. All right, so Tesla will be live again at around 3:30 Eastern. Robinhood right here, 43, dude, up 8% on the day. And that's because Bitcoin's very close to 91. We did touch 91 for a brief second. It got rejected, and it's about 100 points below. So that's helping Robinhood. MicroStrategy should be up like 5%. MSTR is up 9%, 346 on MicroStrategy. Palantir is up 4% on the day. Big day for Palantir. NVIDIA still up 2%. Tesla still 4%. It was at 237, 81. Now it's back at just below 237. Meta's up almost 2%. S&P pretty much recovered everything it lost yesterday. I mean, this is like green. This is, I still feel like someone knows something. I don't see any headlines. The India deal is not confirmed. It's a framework for a deal, but it's not a deal. I think we're still far away from like legitimately having the deal like on paper signed by both parties. So I don't think that's what's pumping it. The ECB president didn't say anything that's that interesting enough to pump the market. So I don't know what it is. It could just be a technical rebound from yesterday. It could be a bull trap, but it feels like there's something going on to create some of this momentum. Amit, have you used FSD? Yes, I use FSD every day. I pay for it every month, $99 a month. I love it. Most of the time when I get into the car, I use FSD, even if it's like a 10-minute drive. So I have become an FSD stan, but there's not that many people that are like realistically using it every single day. And so I think the more and more people that get into the FSD ecosystem, obviously when we get robotaxi and it's unsupervised and it does what a Waymo does, but even better, then I think there's potential. I kind of disagree with Steve on the overall market opportunity for FSD, but it all is contingent on if they can slash the cost. Like if I have to go to the airport and it costs $40 and a robotaxi costs $20, I think people will get over the anxiety to pay 50% less. But can Tesla actually create the unit economics to subsidize people to pay at least 20% less, if not 50? If they can, I think people are going to pick the robotaxi. Now, granted, that's a hard ask, but if they figure it out, then I think the experience will be good enough for them to go with a robotaxi. So the question is just going to be, can they get the economics of it correct in Austin when they launch? And I don't expect them to, because it's going to be hard to immediately get it to work out that quickly, especially because there's not going to be that many cars on the road either. So supply demand is not going to be that good for them. But down the line, I think that's where it gets very excited. How often does FSD make mistakes? Very rarely. I would say like out of 100 FSD drives, maybe there's like 3 or 4 interventions that I have to make when I'm driving. And it's really, it's more so simple stuff where like they didn't know that like this store was in this turn because of whatever problem with their maps. And so it's like very small thing, but nothing where it's been like, oh, I almost crashed. Like that stuff did happen a couple years ago. And there's plenty of YouTube videos showing that. Now I am pretty relaxed in trusting FSD. Like I was taking my sister to the airport on Thursday last week in FSD, and it was lane switching on the highway, making turns, and she was freaking out. And I was just sitting back because I trusted at this point. And it really didn't have any mistakes. I have the latest version. I don't know what it's 13.2 point whatever. Like I updated the software like 3 days ago. So it's the latest version. I drove 650 miles with FSD last month, 2 interventions overall. Yeah, see, that's incredible. 2 interventions for 650 miles is amazing. That's scary because again, most people using FSD aren't paying attention. No, the one thing that Tesla's really good about, which I cannot stand, but I understand why they do it. If you stop paying attention, it's just going to alert you. Like they're monitoring your eyes. And if you even look at your phone to like change the song on your like music app, it will say, hey, pay attention. And so it's really annoying because at some points, like, dude, I'm just trying to change the music. Like I'm not like texting or anything, but they are pretty strict about that. So if you stop paying attention, it'll just turn off FSD. Netflix, 7.5%. Wow. Netflix right here gaining about 50 billion in market cap on the day. But that is one thing Tesla's really good on, and I think everyone is going to be excited when it's officially unsupervised. But it's pretty authoritarian, bro. You do one thing. You look out the window to see like the skyline view driving past New York City. It'll start alerting you to pay attention to the road. It's like you can't even look out the window. It's like aggressive. But granted, that's probably what makes it as safe as it is. NVIDIA right here up 1.6, Tessie 235, that's up 3.6, Hoodie still holding on to 7.2, Bitcoin got rejected at 91, trying to hold on, but Bitcoin right now at 90.7. I think everyone would be happy if we were able to hold this this 90,000 level regardless. NVIDIA got an upgrade today to 190. And the reason for that is because of CUDA, one of these firms, I believe it's Goldman, came out and they said, hey, we think their software mode is being underlooked. Even with the loss of the China revenues, we're upgrading it to 190. So you're starting to get some upgrades coming in that are a bit more aggressive. Now you did have, I think it was Oppenheimer, reduced them to 125. So you really have a diversity of opinions right here. Some people that are hopping on the bandwagon and they're sticking with the thesis. Other people that are saying, nope, we see that a decline in China sales and a hit to net income margins are going to be something that decreases our EPS forecast. Grab right here up 3.5% on the day. But that could also be the reason why NVIDIA is up 2% right now. MB, thank you for the $5 super chat. If you put your visor down and across that camera in the center, then it says view is obstructed and you can look away. Yeah, that's one tip. I heard other people, they wear glasses, like sunglasses. And that's also a way to look away from it. I haven't tried any of those, but yeah, there are little tips and tricks that people use to get out of it. Alex, thank you for the $5 super chat. Any other robotics plays? I think in the public markets, there's two companies that are like legit in robots, and that's Tesla and Google. Now, Google seems like it's not really a robotics play, but they just invested in Apptronic. Tim Draper, Silicon Valley legend, he invested in Apptronic yesterday. He announced it on Twitter. So you are getting some bigger names coming to the robotics play, and they made a pretty big investment. Google DeepMind is basically building the brains for Apptronic. So I think that's important for Google. What's also really important, obviously, is Tesla in the context of robotics. Now, I know Symbiotic is out there, and there's these other smaller robotics plays, but those aren't like super, super big robot companies. So in terms of something that's like relatively safe, I feel like Tesla and Google over the next 10 years will survive. NVIDIA is a robot play because they're making the GPUs for robots. And then there's some smaller companies, but Tesla, NVIDIA, and Google to me seem to be the core companies that are going to try to make a play in robotics. Yeah, Serve Robotics, that's another one that's out there. But again, those are much smaller companies. They don't really have defined moats. They don't really have great balance sheets. I'll say Tesla, NVIDIA, and Google probably have the best ones when it comes to robots. I've never done hurry mode FSD yet. People have been saying I got to try that. I've never done that yet. So I've got to try that one day. Have you ever slept while FSD is driving? No. But again, you know, it will figure it out if you're sleeping unless you wear sunglasses or whatever, but I've never personally slept. Oh, ISRG. This is another one, Intuitive Surgical. They have earnings today. This stock does surgeries using robots. They are year to date. They had a great 2024. Year to date, they're down 9%. Over the past year, they're up 30%. At the height of it, they were at 610 back in January. Right now at 476. I don't know enough about this company to like say if it's a buy or a sell. I don't even know if it's expensive or not. It is down year to date, but it is one of the more unique companies in the healthcare space that's been uniquely using AI and robots to help with surgeries. By the way, TMDX, this one, another popular name, that's up 3% on the day. This thing was back at like $60. Now it's at 90. They transport organs. Very unique business model. They got hit really badly 2 quarters ago when they fell 50% off missing earnings expectations. Looks like they've gotten some recovery. I think they report earnings soon as well. So that's one that a lot of people are looking at. Tesla right here, 236, still up about 4% on the day. Oh, wow. One of you guys actually had a robots with it. Their Da Vinci robot did an amazing job for my hysterectomy last year. Wow. Some of you guys have used it. Yeah. Da Vinci. That's the name of their robot. That's incredible. See, that's where the real use cases of AI and robotics are like serious. Like it can actually save lives, right? Like it automates a lot of the tasks that a surgeon would have to manually do that, you know, the surgeon could potentially make a mistake on. You would expect the robot to have a higher form of accuracy. And so this is the decade where we're supposed to see just transformational applications of AI and robotics, which is why it's really hard to be super bearish. It's just the tariff volatility has obviously created a lot of pain as well. ICRG PE of 73 right now, EPS of 631. Yeah, see, I don't know if that's necessarily cheap given their growth. I don't think they're growing at 30% though. 30%, like I can check their last year's metrics, but I think they're closing in on that 25 to 30%. But a part of their divisions, I think, are growing at like 50%, even if top line's not growing that much. So it definitely is a growth name, even if it's not growing as dramatically. All right, let's get an update from some other stuff going on in the markets, and then we'll get into a couple other of the core headlines that we have right now. Again, I don't see any unique reason why markets are green today. There's no like macro headline outside of people just maybe wanting a relief from what happened yesterday.
And interestingly, if you look at big tech, especially because it's a most important component of tech, the earnings revisions are relatively modest compared to the rest of S&P, where earnings estimates are coming down faster compared to a typical year, but nowhere close to what you see in a recession. So what I would argue is that right now, for the quality of earnings you get in big tech, it's coming to levels where you have to take a look. You cannot time it perfectly, but when you start approaching 23, 22 times forward earnings for the group as general, I think it's worth looking at.
That said, speaking of timing, I mean, none of them reported earnings yet. We've
Yes.
got a little bit. Tesla will get after the bell tonight in terms of at least considering it big tech. I mean, do you have any expectations when it comes to earnings season overall, particularly for this group?
Yeah, so we don't include Tesla in our big tech, just to be clear. But for the rest of them, the consensus numbers are closer to 16%. So at the beginning of the year, we were expecting it to be 20, 21%. So, which is still a lot less than the scale at which they've been beating their numbers for the last 6 to 8 quarters. So I would suggest that even if you get 16%, I think that's very healthy compared to the rest of the market. So remember, when we cut our earnings number for S&P about a week before Liberation Day, we took down our growth estimate from around 12.5% to 6%. But our downside case of a bear market, which increasingly is seeing a higher probability than even just 3 weeks ago, we have earnings going down 2.5%. I think if you look at the real impact of tariffs and the impact, the second order impact on growth and inflation, that number can even go down to about 4.5%, 5%. So you're talking about 20 percentage point swings in what can happen. So in that context, when you look at this group, where the numbers have not moved a lot, for the rest of S&P, like I said, numbers have come down faster than what you would see in a typical year, but nowhere like what you would see in a recession.
Are there then lingering or second order liabilities from, I don't know, advertising or, consumer that might affect names like Meta or Amazon at least?
I wouldn't go into single names, but I would certainly say, just remind you that the two central pillars of US economic strength over the last 2 or 3 years have been, one, the consumer, and second, tech. And both on the margin have weakened at this point in time, right? And the consumer is the most critical element to the US story, right? We are such a consumption-driven economy. If you see, for example, hypothetically, a 2% increase in savings rate, which has been very, very low right now compared to pre-COVID periods, and you see, let's say, a 2% cutback in consumption, that can have a massive impact, including on advertising revenue eventually, which will affect tech as well.
Right.
I think the ad budget declines are definitely a scary proposition for Meta and Google. Now, again, if they come out and say, hey, we don't see any ad budgets really getting hurt. Tesla, by the way, high of the day, 237. Ethereum catching up as well. That's up 7%. Palantir up 4% still. Then that's going to be something we have to worry about with Meta and Google. But if not, then maybe ad budgets for the rest of 2025 are going to be okay. Meta right here up about 1.5% on the day. All right, let's end out the show and get some thoughts from one of our favorite analysts, Kris. We got a lot of green today.
Yeah, it's a good day in the market, man. I specifically came on to address a couple of things. I was on earlier, just listening to your thing, and I think a lot of people are kind of happy that like JD Vance is kind of announcing sort of like this trade framework in India. And I'm happy to see that, but at the same time, and I hope all my Indian brothers don't get mad at me for ratting us out a little bit, but don't get too close to the Indians when it comes to military hardware that's really high tech. The reason why is because India has a very strong relationship with the Russians, and the thing is, India is known for its corruption. Like whatever you give to the Indians, believe it or not, next Tuesday, it's going to be with the Russians. So you better be very careful what you actually sell to them, right? The other thing is, even with trying to develop a stronger relationship with India, I think the U.S. is making a classical mistake that they made with the Chinese in the 80s and 90s, which is, oh, if we become friends with them and we let them do all the small things, they'll develop and they'll become our allies. And one day they'll become like us, and that's not what happened with China. China ended up taking over your manufacturing and then ended up becoming your adversary. India is not going to take your manufacturing, but there's 1.4 billion people out there. They will take your services industry, which is what the U.S. still technically has. You do not want to give 1.4 billion people in India the ability to innovate on the software and the services level that you gave to the Chinese, and then you're going to end up with basically competing against two of the largest monsters in the world, you know? So this is where the US has to think not, a couple of years out, but like 20 years out and say, what are some of the core things that make us who we are as Americans and give us the edge versus other countries, and not give those specific things away, or at least don't give it away so freely,
Do you think that the United States is seeing India more as an ally and not a country that would give away anything special to Russia, or it's just making a mistake? Like, do you think the United States has any insight here that would make them more beneficial to get a deal done?
I think in the goal of trying to counter China, they're like, we should build up India. And my thing is, I'm an Indian, okay? Like I was born in India, believe it or not. So I have a very good understanding of how the Indians think. The Indians are a lot more pragmatic than people think. They will use you until they don't need you, okay? That is how the Indians are going to operate. They're going to say everything that you want to hear and say, yes, we'll do this, we'll do that, we'll do this. And then when push comes to shove, they're going to basically align their interest with their interest. They are not going to turn around and be like, yeah, you know what? America's the one that helped us develop. No. They're going to say,
and to your point, when India started buying oil from Russia during the Russia-Ukraine stuff, that kind of proves your argument that, they went to a major adversary and they took advantage of cheap oil.
Exactly. As much as, like I said, I love India. I love its people. That's where I come from. But at the end of the day, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm proud to be an American, and this is the country that I'm going to advocate for. And one of the things that I don't advocate is we try, like the U.S. foreign policy, in trying to create multiple hegemons to counter each other so that we end up benefiting. Instead, what you're going to see is two hegemons that are basically going to hollow out the key industries that made you successful in the first place. I mean, it's bad enough that we have to compete against the Chinese. You don't want to also compete against the Indians,
Well, here's the thing. If we don't get a deal with India, right, like that would be net. Would that be worse, or are you saying it's worse to get a deal with them and then give them military equipment, etc.?
My thing with India is that definitely do a trade deal with them, but make sure that it's an arm's length trade deal where you come with the understanding that they are your allies to the degree that you can trade freely with them. Okay. Do not get so closely aligned where you're basically giving them access to your capital markets. And then, dude, there's a reason why half of Silicon Valley is Indian software people. Okay. These are some smart, very, very smart, intelligent people. They're going to take everything that they learned here and bring it back to India. And then they're going to create domestic monsters that are now going to compete against your companies internationally, and it's not something that I look forward to 10, 15, 20 years from now, where US companies are competing against Indian companies in the software space or in spaces that right now the US dominates in, and we can actually extract huge margins from. That's what gives us that economic, that economic juice. Do not give away those core strengths. It's the same thing with like the Chinese. Like we thought like, oh, you know what? You can allow a lot of Chinese to come to the US and, they'll develop and everything else. Well, a lot of the Chinese, they took that learning and they brought it back to China, and they developed homegrown industries that are now competing against US interests. The one good thing that we have is that the Chinese, and forgive me for saying this, people, if you're from China, they do a terrible job of marketing. Like for some reason, the Chinese have no idea how to do good marketing. So what ends up happening is their products always come off as either
knockoffs, like knockoffs,
or loaded up with spyware and things like that. So the trust factor in Chinese products is not very high. See, the Japanese were smart. The Japanese said, no, we're going to build quality into our products, and we're going to be a very mild when it comes to doing things. So a lot of people say, yeah, we could trust China, Japanese things, not so much with Chinese things. So
what would be your response to someone who says, what is the harm in buying oil from Russia because India has to do what's in their best interest at the end of the day?
Well, that's the point, right? That every country is going to look out for their best interests. So if we ever get into a situation where it's us and another country and we're thinking that the Indians are going to have our back, Indians are not going to have your back. They're just going to say, look, if this is not going to advance our interest, we're not going to join you in anything. You know,
it's a good counter perspective. I mean, I definitely think everyone's bullish for an India-American deal, but I was uniquely surprised by when they said military equipment is what JD Vance is trying to get out of them to buy our arms. Your argument is that could backfire against us.
Yeah, and the other thing is India is a democracy. So, as much as democracy is a great thing, democracies tend to have a point where things flip. And if the opposition gets in power and they're more, friendlier with other nations, then of course that means that, they're going to have like relations. And if they have relations that are counter to what US's interests are, they'll go with that route, which is, once again, it's India is one of the most pragmatic countries on the planet. Okay. Dealing with them, like I'll tell you a funny story. One of my friends, he's a white guy. He was at the hospital with me and he's like, listen, I'm trying to get out of the rat race. I want to buy this store and this Indian guy is selling it. I'm like, oh, really? So I said to him, okay, here's a question. Just plain simple. I said, what is the last name of the guy that's trying to sell you this store? He's like, oh, it's Patel, just like you. I said, then don't buy it. Okay, don't buy it. Trust me, you do not want to buy it. The guy's like, no, I saw it. Everything is good. I'm like, no. Look, Patels, they will freaking toil, struggle, and try to do everything they can to make a buck out of that business. Okay, if he couldn't figure out how to make money on that thing, it's a failure. Don't do the deal. All right, like I'm trying to give you. And the guy said, okay, and then he looked over the books and everything. He found out like, no, it wasn't a good deal. Like, so there's two types of people you don't really want to deal with on the other side when it comes to business. Like, you don't want to deal with a Indian person who's a Patel, because we're very business oriented, and you don't want to deal with the Jew on the other side. Like, if those two people, they're going to rip your throat out when it comes to business. So you best be very careful how you deal with them. And that also extends into the political system. Like, if you look at Narendra Modi, that dude's a Gujarati person. Okay, Gujaratis are known for their pragmatism. Okay.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons they actually bought oil from Russia when it was cheap. Kris, in terms of the broader markets, S&P 525 up 2.5%. We recovered everything we lost yesterday. Is this green fake? Do you have a reason for why we're green? Like, why do you think everything is pumping as much as it is right now?
I think it could be a dead cat bounce, but some of it is just oversold levels as well. Some people are saying, you know what, maybe it's time to start kicking the tires and seeing what's out there in terms of total opportunity. And like I said, valuations, they're still, I'd say probably they're fair value. They're not undervalued. And it's rare that you're going to get undervaluation, like unless there's some kind of major catastrophic event that pushes the market in that direction. So I think the great companies that are high quality right now, they're just being bought. People are being strategic with their purchases. And so people are just riding the volatility too.
But do you think this is just a rebound from, because I don't see any fundamental news for this. So do you think there's anything real here that you can think of, the India deal, or it's just a technical bounce?
I mean, the prospect of the India deal leads, I think, at least in people's minds, opens the door to further deal announcements. And if we get a series of these happening every other day, where it's like, we announced a deal with here, we announced a deal with this, and announced a deal with that, then it could build into the psyche that maybe this trade war, we're not losing it, we're actually winning it.
Right.
We're doing what we need to, which is isolating China and all the other stuff. And eventually you get to the point where you can go to China and, get as much concessions out of them when it comes to that bilateral trade thing. Because 145% against the Chinese, I don't think it can last until probably not the 90-day period, right? So my guesstimate, at least, is that it's going to be at least a month, maybe 2 months And then after that, the market's going to be like, or at least like the Main Street is going to be screaming for the Trump administration to basically give them some relief from the tariffs. You know, right now you're already starting to see like people on the small business side, they're getting pinched by both things. They don't have enough working capital to pay for the tariffs. The larger companies can, and so a lot of small businesses might end up going out of business. So it's something that we have to be very careful with how things proceed. And I think right now the market is giving us a bit of a reprieve, but I wouldn't necessarily want to, like go super long right away. I'd wait until things consolidated, and then, I mean, if you like a company and you like the valuation, buy it. If you don't like it and you feel like, hey, there's more risk to the downside, then don't buy it.
It's days like this that make it hard to not be in the markets. Now, granted, all of this could go away next week or tomorrow or by the end of the day, but like, this is the choppiness of the market that makes it hard to just be full cash, because you miss stuff like this. And if this does create a trend and we get an India deal, then South Korea, Japan, yada, yada, there is room to maybe have a more bullish 2025.
Yeah. I mean, let's see what happens. Yeah. There's really my hope is that we get some sort of resolution on this tariffs thing, because if not, then we are going to end up in a recession, and it's not going to be a good one politically for the Trump administration, because then they're going to end up having to, if they want to get out of it, they're going to have to go super hard with stimulus, in which case that could end up causing a recession. So this whole Jerome Powell thing, I don't even think that was worth it. I don't know why Trump would tweet that out, other than just trying to get like bit of an escape route, just in case the recession does land. He can point to Jerome Powell and just say, oh, look, he's the one that did it, not me. But.
Yeah, it was weird. And I think the more he does that, the more instability he causes, but just not. And we know he's going to cut in June. So the idea that he's not going to cut in May and Trump can't be patient to just wait till June and he needs the cut like tomorrow, it's not worth it. You're not going to get the cut.
Yeah. By the way, I hope people in the chat, like especially my Indian brother, and y'all don't feel like I'm trying to insult you. I'm not trying to insult you guys. I'm Indian. My whole thing with India is that, the US has actually had a notorious history of not treating India well. And so the Indians will always remember that. Like, I'll give you the best example I can give you is 1971, where Bangladesh was still East Pakistan at the time. And so I think West Pakistan was, like messing with them. They were coming over to the Indian side as refugees. The Indians, basically fought a war with Pakistan at the time, and the US was actually backing Pakistan. And, basically the US, China, the UK, they sent like, I think the 8th Fleet or something into the Bay of Bengal, and India at the time was basically surrounded. And the Soviets were actually the ones that had signed a deal with India and actually came and rescued this whole situation. So a lot of Indians remember that goodwill. And that's one of the reasons why the Indians during the Russia-Ukraine thing still kept really, really strong relations with the Russians, And so my thing is, don't think that the Indians have forgotten that. It's something that's like, and all throughout, literally since independence, the US until very recently has basically supported Pakistan. So the Indians in India, they love the US, but they're always still going to have that in their back of their brain that you basically like supported Pakistan, which has been harboring terrorists for the last like however many years. And like I said, that's the one area where they're not going to have a very favorable relationship. I mean, Modi, at one time Obama tried to actually ban Modi, like actually took away his visa before he became the prime minister.
Really?
Yeah. So
about that.
There was sectarian violence in Gujarat at the time. And so basically,
he was denied a U.S. visa. Yeah, I'm seeing it right here.
Yeah, Modi was accused of a genocide against the Muslims in his home state, or at least allowing a genocide to happen, right? Like as a pogrom thing. So basically, the Supreme Court of India found that he didn't do it and everything else, but literally, like, Modi the entire time was not allowed to come to the United States, and the Obama administration was very, like, anti-Modi. So the Indians, their thinking is always, don't trust the U.S. Like, trust the U.S. as long as we get something out of it. That's basically the mentality that they have.
Yeah. Kris, last question for you. Tesla, what do you think? Pump or dump?
I don't know, bro. It depends on what Elon ends up saying regarding his involvement with Doge. If he actually even addresses it. If he addresses it and says, you know what, I'm done with Doge. I'm gonna come back. I need to focus on the core brand of Tesla and building out the next cycle of robotics and autonomous cars and taxis. And
all right, so pick a side. Pump or dump? Tesla 239. What do you think?
I just said I was damn Indian. I'm pragmatic. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to go with either side.
If you gun to your head, you have to buy calls or puts. What would you do today?
It's funny. If it was like 400, then definitely puts. But at 2 something, I think the risk is more on the upside. So I think that it's more likely that we see some news that brings it higher rather than lower.
Oh, so you're going the contrarian.
Yeah, so I'll go the contrarian route. The numbers might look like crap, but I think that overall, if Elon is on the call, which I expect him to be on the call, he's definitely going to do a good job of pumping it. And basically, I mean, remember, Tesla doesn't trade on cars anymore. At least I don't think the number of sales really matters as much to the Tesla investor. I think Dan Ives called it right in that the story behind Tesla is regarding robotics and autonomy now, so if those numbers, or if that level of optimism gets highlighted by Elon and it's a convincing enough argument, then we pump. I'm not in it, by the way. I just
we know. Trust us, we know.
Yeah, I'm not in it.
All right, Kris, appreciate you, brother. We will talk to you next time. Thank you.
Have a good one. Take care.
Have a good one. All right, guys, we're going to end out the show there. We do have a new tweet from Trump. He says, I've just spoken to Prime Minister of Israel, Bibi Netanyahu, relative to numerous subjects, including trade, Iran, etc. The call went very well. We are on the same side of every issue. So we did get a Trump tweet. Looks like the Trump tweet is positive for markets, not really seeing any volatility from that tweet. Tesla just got to 239, right now back at 238. It's really having some fun before earnings. And if it does fall 10%, it's going to give away the 5% that it got today. So I don't know, below 200. A lot of people felt it was going to happen tomorrow. Maybe now with this pump and Elon says anything positive about Doge, Optimus, etc., maybe we get a little bit more momentum. Grab having a great day as well, up 5.6%, 430 on Grab. This thing was 340 2 weeks ago. So you're seeing a decent chunk of momentum right here. And then Robinhood 43, that's up 8%. Robinhood as well, getting some momentum here. And then Bitcoin got to be the story of the day. 91,353, up $3,000 basically in the past 2 hours, up 3.5%. Bitcoin really benefiting the MicroStrategies, Coinbase, Robinhoods, Bitcoin miners, and all the other equities exposed to Bitcoin. And then Palantir up 4% on the day. Good day for markets so far. Tesla earnings is going to really kick off big tech earnings, and we're going to see how that one plays out. I'll be live at 3:30 with Jose, Steve, and Neil from the Couch Investor channel. So I'll be having a panel with me, and we will be going through all these numbers and see how this plays out. Word of the day is Earth Shine.
Earth Shine.
A faint glow on the dark part of the moon during a crescent phase caused by sunlight reflecting off the Earth. Through the telescope, the soft Earth shine made the entire lunar surface faintly visible. Leonardo da Vinci was one of the first to correctly explain the phenomenon of Earth shine. Okay, if it's a faint glow, I would say this market is a faint green glow amidst all the red that we got yesterday. And I still don't know what's causing it, and I don't think any of you have like a definitive answer. Everyone's just assuming it's the India stuff, which maybe it is. Or maybe it's just people stepping in because they think eventually the deals are going to come in and JPEG's not going to get fired. I mean, you have a lot of catalysts that could switch easily to then get people to be more bullish. Yields are coming down. The dollar's going up. That's good. And then equity is not having the worst day right here. Bitcoin at 91,000 and the S&P still holding on to 2% on the day. Now 2.28, almost everything we lost yesterday. I think yesterday the S&P was down 2.24%. So we've recovered everything plus a little bit more at 525.52 right now. Oh, okay. Let me do this right here. So last thing before you go, Angel, thank you for reminding me right here. You didn't have to send the super chat. You could have messaged me on Twitter, but he sent a super chat. So let me give a shout out right here. You guys know that I think of this stream as a community, and I really appreciate everyone who's part of the community. And sometimes in the community, you got to lift up people that have been here for a while. And I'm very, very sympathetic to small businesses, especially because my dad ran a small business his whole life. So shout out to Bender's Bakery. I'm not sponsored by this or anything. This is just a good friend who's been part of the stream for damn near 2 years now. This is Angel's business, Bender's Bakery. It is a bakery for dogs. It is a bakery for dogs. So if you have a dog and you would like to get 15% off, you can use code Palantir, PLTR. Angel's been watching the video since 2022. He says, thanks to the Palantir gains, my wife and I launched Bender's Bakery, which is crazy. That Palantir gains allowed him to launch an entire business, but it's absolutely incredible. Eco-friendly ingredients for dogs and bakery snacks for dogs. So not just regular food or treats, but certain types of treats that are more eco-friendly for dogs. I'm not an expert on bakery treats for dogs, but $11.95 seems relatively reasonable. Not that crazy, especially for a small business. So if anyone has a dog, I don't have a dog, but a lot of dog videos pop up on Instagram, which means when I move out, I'm going to definitely want to get a dog, and I'm going to name it Bubba. I think that's the cutest name ever, Bubba. That's going to be the name for the dog. There you go. Bender's Bakery officially has launched. Shout out to Angel. Thank you for being part of the show. And yeah, everyone, if you have a dog, please check it out. Give it a chance, and you get 15% off with using code PLTR. There they are. That's great. Look at that. Beautiful couple. Got the dogs right there. He says, Bender, Marley, and Lilo, the furry family that inspires everything we do at Bender's Bakery. Discover our journey, meet Dr. Joyce Lai, and learn how to incorporate the healing principles of traditional Chinese medicine into every treat we create for your pups. It's dope stuff, dude. It's really dope stuff. And, you know, that is really the nature of the stock market, right? You're supposed to take the gains that you get in the market and then go do something with it. And he took his Palantir gains and he's starting another business. And that business is definitely a mission-oriented business. It's one of the most unique businesses I've ever seen. I've never really heard of dog bakeries that are eco-friendly. So please make sure to check it out, bendersbakery.com. And shout out to Angel for taking a risk, starting a business, and doing what people do in this country, which is do what they have to do to survive and put out innovative products into the world. So there we go. Bender's Bakery. The logo is genius. Admit, do you recognize it? No, I don't. Does anyone recognize this logo? I mean, it's a dog, right? Is there something different about this logo? But Bender's Bakery is the name of it. A dog, but also baking hands. Ah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, a dog, but also baking hands. There you go. Yeah, that is right. Cool. bendersbakery.com. So please, everyone, make sure to check it out. And congrats, Angel, on starting the business as well. Absolutely incredible. Ticker symbol. Yeah, what's the ticker symbol? Oh, that's funny. Are they listed? They're not listed yet, but we got to buy up as many products as we can so Angel can eventually get this thing listed. Angel, how long did it take to start this business? I think he messaged me about it like months ago. So I think you've been working on it for about a year now, right? Assuming it's been a minute since they got into the beginnings of it. Wow, a lot of you guys are ordering. That's awesome, dude. Super cool. Love to support small businesses. I mean, it's the heart and soul. You know, I've made a conscious attempt, especially amidst all the tariff volatility, to like, if I'm getting a latte, to not go to Dunkin' Donuts, but go to like a local coffee shop. And even if I have to pay an extra $1 or $2, it's whatever, just because I don't know. I really like in the midst of volatility, you know, if you can afford to pay an extra $1 or $2 to get some coffee and you don't have to go to the big name brands. if you can go to a small business, then I think it's definitely something we can all put a little bit more intentional effort into, just because small businesses, 66% of businesses in America are small businesses. It's the backbone of this country, as much as we talk about $50, $100 billion companies every day. So people like Angel are really what makes the country go round. All right, cool. I love it. What's their AI play? Dude, Angel, you got to add some AI plays to this. You got to name one of the treats an AI treat or something. Bee's Knees is the name of the first one. And then Golden Delights is the name of the second one. There you go. Soon as I get my dog, I'm ordering from here. I really do want to get a dog, dude. Like, I need to get a dog that's not going to bark during the show. So I need to get a dog who like is going to be chill during the morning open and not constantly barking, which there are dogs like that. But then there's other dogs that are just barking all day. So it would be nice to make sure that if I get a dog, they just, are chilling out and I can get through the show. But I'm serious. They keep popping. And the reason they keep popping up on Instagram is because I spend time watching these freaking dog videos. And at this point, I really want to get one. Chad says we have a Shopify integration to AIP. I love Angel. If you want to get in contact with Chad, you can message me on Twitter. And Chad's been trying to get a lot more people integrated into AIP, especially people just to try out kind of what it's like. Nate, good friend of the channel, he started AIP last night. He built his own custom pipeline. So you do have a lot of people in the small business world that are seeing the benefits of AIP as well. A golden retriever. It's either a golden. There's a couple different dogs. I don't know the names of the breeds, but for a longest time I wanted a pub, but I don't know, because I mean the more research I did, I think pubs have a lot of health difficulties, and it would be a little tough getting. And I'm a first time dog owner, so I want like the least amount of issues, and so I kind of want something that's a bit more safer for me to manage. Golden retriever just gets really big, so I don't know. But eventually, when I move out, hopefully we will be able to get a dog. A pug is such an admit dog. I can see it. Dude, I love pug. They're so cute. Every time I see them. Oh, pug, not pub. Did I say pub? Damn it. I meant pug, not pub. Pug, not pub. That sounds like such an alcoholic thing to say, bro. I want a pub. That's ridiculous. Okay, I'm not getting a Chihuahua, dude. Like, I've seen Chihuahuas. I don't think that's the type of dog I want. I don't even know what the name, but I'll show you guys the pictures that I see on Instagram, but there's the same dog that keeps popping up, and I'm like, dude, this would just be so awesome to have a dog like this. So maybe eventually we'll get that dog. All right, cool. So thank everybody for being here. We'll be live at 3:30. We'll have a whole panel with us to discuss Tesla earnings. Again, bendersbakery.com. Shout out to Angel. Hopefully, for those that do have dogs, you take a chance and get 15% off and order something from here. I'll be live at 3:30. We'll start 15 minutes early. We'll see what Tesla can put up. And hopefully we get some decent results from Tesla and we can start off big tech earnings with a bang. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate you all. See you guys in a couple hours. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.